perfect. Thank you so much. See, this is why I go into business with the best talent. Right here, Mars, good friend of mine, decided to launch into this endeavor with me. Right now, we're calling this Starship Pacific, and what we want to bring you all out here in the glorious web space is a talk show, because I'm old and showing my age, and really wanted to see and hear more from the talk show space on Twitch. So, well, when it comes to the topic of talk show, there's nothing that Mars here and I know better collaboratively together than old-ass video games. I don't think there's anything that you and I spend more time talking about in our private lives. Everything from retro game preservation efforts to what the best retro game experiences are, and nostalgia. Is it even really worth it? Books that we're all going to write someday, I'm sure. But I don't know, Mars, how you feeling this fine evening?
Feeling pretty good. And speaking of things we talk about, Mr. Guy said that he said, "I'm good, got Cyberpunk, and about to spend a healthy amount of time in Elden Ring." So yeah, we might
Nice.
touch on that in some discussion later. But that's something Jordan and I have, or JB and I have been talking about as well.
Yeah, Cyberpunk has been my my heat sink, so to speak, for my mental stresses right now. And let me tell you, there's so much to unpack there with all the new content. Dear Lord, I have been so invested in not only trying to just track down all the things that were broken before and are fixed now, but trying to track down all these extra little Easter eggs and goodies that they've hidden in the game, and just you wouldn't even believe the tiny little areas that they've taken the time to alter, to provide a better experience. Walking down an alley that was just a gap between two buildings with dirt covered ground in between, being turned into a full-on neighborhood in the patch for no other reason besides CD Projekt Red apparently had the time this last year.
That they did.
All right, and with that intro out of the way, today with our inaugural episode, we were hoping to take a look at The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, a game that is probably going to be older than most of our audience. Again, dating myself, but I myself was not speaking in entirely complete sentences by the time this game was released, so, not crazy ancient here, but
Yeah,
it's hard to understate the impact of Zelda. Mars, I mean, you can right, everybody knows their first Zelda, the first Zelda game they owned, and the first one they played. What about you? What's your first?
Oh yeah, Link to the Past was my first Zelda game.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, so
I
this
didn't
one's
even
gonna be pretty special for you then.
I didn't even play A Legend of Zelda because the only thing I played on NES was like Super Mario World and Duck Hunt.
The only experience I've honestly had with somebody playing outside of video game nerds like us, kids who are getting into Zelda in college because retro gaming is like a fun experience to have once you start realizing that things existed that are older than you, right? But outside of nerds who had played the original Legend of Zelda in college, the only real world example I've ever met of let's call them an elder gamer who have played The Legend of Zelda was my mother, of all people. Not much of a gamer, but she told me fondly of her experience with Zelda being, staying up late with people in college who would play it. They'd all huddle around a tiny ass, CRT screen, very late 80s, staring at this thing. Oh my God, trying to imagine my mom like huddled around a TV playing Zelda is a hilarious image. But
The glow of the CRT.
she said how her boyfriend at the time actually bought like notebooks of graph paper to hand draw out all of the dungeons, because right in our time, right, you would just go to the store and you would buy a strategy guide in this, sort of pre-internet or pre-stable internet access, pre-game FAQs day. But no, back then it's like you had to make your own strategy guide, and if you had the strategies, you were in the know. And I feel a lot of that vibe coming into this particular Zelda title, because right, with me wanting to play this game and have that sort of purist interaction of not looking up anything on the internet, I am not ashamed to admit that I quit this game after I got to the Dark World. I couldn't figure out how to get out of the Dark World. I didn't get that you like walk to a particular patch of grass or whatever it is and whoop, you're out. Like, this was like oh my god, if this were the 90s and I were a kid trying to play this shit and I had no friends who had this game and or it were slightly more talented than me, then that's it. That's my Legend of Zelda experience.
Hmm.
Eject cartridge, put Mario back in because that game is, something that I can handle at my level at that point. So,
Yep.
how about you? How did you beat this game without help your first time through?
Probably not without help. By the way, Mr. Guy says his first Zelda was Ocarina of Time on the 3DS. Very nice.
Shout out, same.
Very nice. Very nice.
Oh
That
no,
was-
sorry, not Ocarina of Time on the 3DS. I'm thinking
On the
Oracle
64?
of Ages on the Game Boy Color.
Oh,
So
okay.
a handheld one about time.
Yeah. You know, it can kind of, but yeah. So for Link to the Past, I mean, so yeah, I have a lot of childhood memories with this. I remember, I mean, I owned it when I was a kid, obviously, and I. And oh, looks like Mr. Guy's doing D&D. Very nice.
Enjoy.
So yeah, I remember playing it a lot when I was a kid, and as you do when you're a kid, you usually play like the first section like a lot because like the first half of the game, because like you are a dumb kid and you don't understand how to play games, and so
The click until you win strategy. All right, I don't get what's going on here. So I'm literally like, right, you're like your sprite character's hitting the corner of every room, budging up against the wall, hitting A against every
Yeah.
surface to find that one thing you haven't tried.
yeah. So I was a dumb kid, but I had smart friends in the neighborhood, and by smart I mean they were like 2 years older than me. And
Oh yeah, never underestimate 1 year in kid time. Those kids are geniuses, right?
yeah, so they helped me beat the game, and so we eventually did beat it. And I remember, but like I don't know if I ever did it like beginning to end by myself when I was that young. And because I remember I would load save files like that either like my friend made or somebody made or whatever, that had like all the hearts and all the upgrades and everything, just to beat Ganon at the end, because like I was too dumb to be able to do anything else.
That reminds me, actually, I stole, I shit you not, my friend, his save of Final Fantasy X one night when I slept over at his house. I secretly booted it up, plugged in our memory cards, and made sure I didn't wake him up, and copied his save file of Final Fantasy X because that motherfucker could beat Unalesca, and I couldn't figure out how to do
What was
it.
he? Would he not let you, or was there like a kid, like a boy pride thing
Oh
there?
no, I wasn't like, oh man, like it was pride, right? Because I'm a teenage
Yeah,
kid,
the boy
preteen,
pride.
whatever you call it at this point. I'm in my adolescence, and my friend could beat Unalesca, but I couldn't. It was like, if nobody caught me copying it, and I just had the save data that had me after Unalesca, and I kept playing the game, then it was the same as beating Unalesca for me.
Yep. Yeah, Unalesca
So
was
yeah, that's
tough.
what that reminded me of. Having a, taking somebody else's save file and running with that.
Yep.
I mean, that's how I started Metroid on the Super Nintendo. I had a save file that had you past the starting area. I played through it a little bit, and I'm like, this is fun. Now I should watch Marcus play through the rest of the game too.
Oh yeah, was that was when I just beat the game in that one
Yeah,
night.
yeah, beat the whole thing in front of me, which is
Yeah.
why, looping back to sort of meta talk about the show, which is why one of the reasons why in a lot of these segments, Mars here is going to be our in-house pro gamer at the sticks. There's nobody that I trust to entertainingly play through a game than this guy, because you leave me at the sticks for too long. I'm trying to show you something, and I'm like 3 hours deep in a menu, just being like, and look, I have this item with this stats, and then this item with that stats, and then everybody is just bored to tears. Everyone wants to go home. But no, I can say that quite a few games now I have managed to only get through or get into because this guy over here, he's in the left on my frame, but probably to the right for the rest of you. He's the one who knows how to play through the games.
Oh,
So-
dude, I accept. Well, it's like, and that got you into your one of your favorite games of all time now, Hollow Knight.
Yes,
you wouldn't have known about that game
I
if
did
I-
not know how much I was missing the Metroidvania genre in my life until that passion for Hollow Knight was reawakened, because I don't think I would have given a second look at trying to go back and play the Metroid games
Yeah.
without having played through that first. So, kids at home, never underestimate the lineage of your favorite modern games.
Yeah, well, and I will say this though, the benefit of you being so neck deep in menu stuff and like stats is I love handing you my controller sticks when I'm like, I need some menu management, like Fire Emblem or something like that.
Oh man, I haven't sorted my items in Final Fantasy VII once. That's just like
Here you go.
obsessive compulsive whatever takes over. You grab that controller and it's like 15 minutes later and it's like, all right, I've sorted your healing items by the ones you're most likely to use to your elixirs.
I'm like, cool, now I get to go blow shit up.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why I enjoy this new iteration of Cyberpunk so much, is that they have given a lot of attention to the people who both want to spend time in menus and do not want to spend time in menus. Things like mass crafting, quicker disposal, consolidated junk tabs. But then you get the people who me are like, consolidated junk tab, you say? What qualifies as junk? And then it's a whole like deep dive into it. So yeah, there's plenty to do in this game for the statters of the world and the non-statters, and
Yeah.
I'm very firmly one of those statter types.
Yes, indeed.
Statter, collector, Pokemon, you know, is crack.
But I will say this: whenever we get to some Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance games, I foresee you taking the helm or at least talking the most about the game and me playing it. Because
because oh holy hell, I was just thinking about how entertaining it would be to see if I could speed run something like Pokemon Yellow.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Because that game, you know, if you catch the right Pokemon and you use the right ones, you can breeze through the game in no time at all. But if you pick the wrong Pokemon, you're sitting there and you are training and training and grinding to get that one, the abilities and the levels it needs. So yeah, there's the Pokemon Yellow especially, there is very much an optimal way to play through that game.
But segue, talking about speedruns, fun facts about Link to the Past. It is one of the most speedrun games in the speedrunning community and the internet.
Really?
You know, yeah, it is highly speedrun and speed ran. Very, very popular for that. And I don't know if you know this, there's this thing called a Link to the Past randomizer. Have you ever heard about this?
I'm familiar with the concept of randomizers, but I didn't know that there's one for Link to the Past. Is that like an enemy randomizer in terms
It's
of
an
like
item. It's usually an item randomizer, and so and they can vary. It's one of the biggest like communities of randomizers, and I kid you not. So like Games Done Quick. Do you know about Games Done Quick?
Yeah, GDQ.
Yeah, GDQ. So they are every year, they like almost always have like races, like Link to the Past races or randomizer races or like co-op randomizers, and they even have like a Super Metroid Link to the Past melded together randomizer. It's super, like, it goes deep, man. Like that's something I love about, and
that's some Mario Maker shit right there, because I remember seeing in that first Mario game when they imported all of those custom sprites of like, now you can use Samus in a Mario level and Link in a Mario. I feel like that was the equivalent of like fetish fuel for modders.
So what I and kind of like on the vein of like what we're kind of doing with this streamcast and with which I'm calling it a streamcast because it's like a podcast and streaming, you know. Anyway,
this is like, we're gonna be able to cut this into 3 different formats. It's gonna be distributed on Twitch. Mars over here in his YouTube wizardry is going to cut this over to YouTube someday when he has the time for it, and then eventually we'll work together and co-collaborate on maybe condensing down this audio and figuring out how to get this more into a traditional podcast format.
Yeah, that's way more in the future, but yeah, that could definitely happen.
Streaming, podcasting, we're sort of bridging that divide with this, and I'm sure some youth will come along and own me with the proper terminology for what I'm doing, or tell me that I'm trying to be too esoteric, but youths will be youths.
Youths, but
youths.
But yes, so like the thing that's I think is really cool about like the retro community and like what we're kind of like tapping into with this is like there's, and as I've kind of been dipping my toes back into it, and I actually want to say that I want to thank you for actually like initiating that again, because after I sold my retro stuff, I was just like so depressed I never wanted to do retro stuff again until the Super NT. That was what brought me back into it.
Like it's like I think of this analogy, and no, it's not even an analogy, it's more of a little bit of an anecdote, I guess, but I am a huge fan of the actor Ron Perlman. You might know him from Hellboy fame as Hellboy. He also plays anybody that needs to look like the toughest Jewish gangster you've ever seen. He's just awesome in all the roles he's in. But Ron Perlman is a classic car guy. So Ron Perlman hit this point where in his own personal politics, he's like, wow, cars are crazy wasteful. And if I can afford to be electric, I can't. So he, instead of getting out of the car game, abandoning his passion, right, just found a merger of the now and then, and he became like one of the foremost people to come out in culture and say, man, it's way more masculine if you take an old cool muscle car and rip that Hemi engine out and put an electric engine in it, and like leading the change on like, hey, maybe your hobby doesn't have to be defined by like the physical ownership of all these antiquated things, so long as the soul of driving that car, so to speak, is preserved. And that's sort of what I think of when we talk about what Analog's efforts have done in the video game preservation community, because we now have the Super NT, the Analog Pocket, the NT Mini, which is their NES
consoles.
Yeah, this place where we can go into a store and find these well, they're getting more expensive all the time, but almost at a budget, find this whole retro experience and relive this without having to get an original Super Nintendo and restore that and get original hardware. Like, right, you can still have this sort of that same memory preserved in a loving way. And I think that Analog, on their own, and I wish I could remember the guy's name. I'll get that, and I'll bring that up in a second, just to give him the credit where credit's due.
Oh, the head hardware programmer.
Yeah, I mean, he has spearheaded an effort to show people that like it's not just the domain of like cheap Chinese, circuit board, screen, cartridge reader, these USB, Raspberry Pi, plug and play. Like, you don't have to settle for like a degraded hardware experience to enjoy your retro vibes, when there's so much technology and so much talent out there that can be put into creating a console that will give you that same feel in 2022 that, as a new player of, say, Yoshi's Story on the GBA, that I had on the GBA with Yoshi's Story in 2004, except that when I pull off my retro goggles and realize that playing Yoshi's Story on the GBA in 2004 involved me not having a backlit screen and straining the heck out of my eyes, and my hands are smaller than and cramped and whatnot, it's like, oh, damn, I can actually experience gaming as it was with the nostalgia goggles on, with new technology.
Yeah, how we remember it was seen. By the way, his name is Kevin Horton, aka
Kevin Horton. That's
Ketris.
Right. Yes, and I remember his name, Horton, specifically because I'm like, Tim Hortons. Because
yeah.
Timbits are freaking delicious, man. If you've never had a Timbit before in your life, you need to go up to Canada and have yourself a damn Timbit.
I don't think I've ever had a Timbit, and I was in Vancouver, BC.
It's like a glazed donut hole, but you get like a box of them with coffee, and Canadians.
Oh,
just
that's
do this shit all the time.
There's a franchise that's like crazy popular in Canada.
Like, if you think like America runs on Dunkin' as like their catchphrase, then Tim Hortons runs Canada might as well be their catchphrase.
Well, like no, I wish I could remember what the store was named. But yeah, and to kind of go off of what you were saying with like video game preservation and retro games and like fan bases and everything, like realizing coming into this world that like there is still a strong community for obviously speedrunning is one thing, but modding, modding games, hacking games, patching games. that's something that I would actually I wrote down in kind of our we have like a brainstorm document for ideas, but I wanted to showcase at some point like my favorite hacks and mods
Yeah, absolutely.
for games that, in my opinion, are keeping, you know, taking these old games that we love and putting new spins on them.
Yeah, hell, someday I could very much see, a monthly segment even where we dedicate one of our shows each month to show, um, what's going on in specifically the mod space, both hardware and software, right?
Mhm.
Because that is one whole element of this where we could spend entire shows on it. So
Yeah.
I think that's a fabulous idea, right? And maybe you know what? You heard it here first, viewers. A good place to start our mod segment, the legendary mod segment, when it appears. We'll start with Zelda.
All right, there it is.
Same game, might as well. Just like,
Yeah.
There's
plenty
we'll even
to go around.
put on our Star Trek like evil goatee mustaches for those segments, and like in the dark hack universe, we're doing
Hacker Man.
Starship Atlantic. I don't know, but
Hacker Man.
yeah. So bringing it back to Legend of Zelda, I just want to kind of talk for a second of a little bit more on the impact of this series, because we talked early on about how everybody has a first Zelda experience, much like everyone has a first Mario. And to be fair, Mario gets the much vaunted. Everybody remembers their first Mario experience and Mario Kart experience and Mario Party experience.
Yep.
And because his face is on the cover of the box, I'm including it. Super Smash experience. So right, like Mario gets to live in a lot of those first, and coming to the topic of Super Smash, Link also gets to live in that first too,
Yep,
right?
absolutely.
That first of, let's do a multiversal crossover. Is there a story? Sure. It's about a deranged hand, and they might be statues, and that's it. That's the entire nonsense inertia HAL Laboratory put together as their crossover for that. And the fact that Nintendo was willing to bet Link on that endeavor, when Link is literally, I see like the House of Mario and the House of Link are like the entire pillars of integrity on which the party brand for Nintendo resides. So yeah. What were you saying, man?
I was just you didn't freeze up, did you?
Oh, did I lose you?
Oh no, you
disconnect.
Your video froze a little bit. Let's wait a minute. Is your did you close your
Lost
Discord
the
app?
audio. My last ping is at 5,000.
Are you? Oh, there we are. Okay, you're back. Don't worry, we can edit this out on the YouTube, so that's fine. Do you hear me now? Oh no. Technical difficulties, everybody. It happens.
Yeah. Time to reset. All right. Yep.
Oh, there you are. Okay, hold on. Let me get your video back up here.
My ping clocked in at about 5,000. My poor network is like, what the hell are you doing?
What are you doing? Oh boy, what were we talking about?
I got lost somewhere and trying to pivot back to the significance of Zelda.
Oh, that's right. Now I remember what I was going to say.
Super Smash and how Zelda and Mario essentially pillars of the brand.
I remember exactly what I was going to say now.
Good.
Okay, so you mentioned the idea of like your first Mario. I think that the first Zelda is a very, very impactful thing for a lot of gamers. And I think that's why A Link to the Past holds such a special place in a lot of gamers of our age, because a lot of people our age range like did play Link to the Past first. Now, I think that also that's why also A Link to the Past and Ocarina of Time kind of have this sort of combativeness in the fandom of like, oh, Ocarina of Time's better. Oh, Link to the Past. And like really the Zen way to do it is like, no, but they're both great. But but I think
then you take my take on the combative stance and literally have only experienced, the top-down 2D Link to the Past right up until the moment where I ejected myself from the game. I still am always going to be a 2D man over the 3D man because, there's something about your roots.
Yeah.
And I'll always go to that because like what I see Ocarina of Time as is actually the start of a separate franchise within a franchise. Like, really, there are two Zeldas, as I sort of brought up what I think in the beginning, is that there's the 2D and the 3D, and that after Ocarina, the 3D became the priority. Like the soul of the Zelda franchise and that pushing forward, making bigger, more expansive worlds absolutely lives in the 3D side.
Yep.
The 2D side, after being sort of freed from the constraint of being the most popular franchise game in existence with the 3D ones, you see a lot of the most innovative gameplay in the 2D games starts to really emerge and flourish in that time. So I would say that them splitting and being almost two separate franchises within the franchise has been a massive boon to it, because, like, right, I think, God, I wish we had a bigger audience at this point just so people could flame me for this opinion. But I think the Minish Cap is an example of one of the tightest games ever made. Totally true and tight to a concept of the console that it came out on. Used all the hardware beautifully, gorgeous in every aspect. Totally iterated, improved, and expanded upon predecessor's gameplay. Didn't overstay its welcome. Had a collectible side quest that wasn't egregious or ridiculous. I mean, it really hits like a lot of gaming high points, and that's probably the reason why it's $130 to buy a copy of the Minish Cap.
That's going to be something that I would like to showcase if when we do some GBA showcases. Also, I need to let my cat out.
Hell yeah. I have to actually get a copy of that game at some point and play through it again. And then once I can safely do that, and we actually have the tech, speaking of more retro tech, by the way, I have an Epilogue Game Boy cart reader. And what that does is via USB, it's going to connect to my PC, and I'll be able to play games straight off the cart and give them to you at home to watch.
Nice.
Straight from the horse's mouth. And what that hopefully, you know, will do is, you know, if nothing else with this stream, I would love it if at least one more person went and patronized some of these brands, because every single one of us that goes and buys these that isn't, and I'm going to say something a little controversial here, maybe not, but every one of us that gets an analog or an epilogue or a retro game that we like that isn't a goddamn scalper or a collector who's never going to play it and let it sit behind glass forever, if we can get one more person out there to go and choose those avenues to retro game, you know, awesome. It's great, because you know, the hobby will wither and die without the interest. And right now it seems really ridiculous, right? Us in 2022 in our 30s to say, oh, well, our hobby could wither and die. But right, we're now faced with the fact that retro gaming preservation is a little bit under threat. Nintendo only just last week announced that all of the software on the EU, on the Wii U, on the eShop in the EU, US, for the 3DS and Wii U, holy wow, that's a mouthful of acronyms, no longer available past March 2023. That means entire generations of people who had the opportunity to own virtual console games like Earthbound or the Nintendo Classics or several Super Nintendo Classics, much like A Link to the Past, on that format or on those devices, now locked off as a result of what I can only assume is a business decision of Nintendo's to, you know, move more of those titles in the house. But as we've seen with the virtual console, it's not a perfect process. We had to wait so long just to get basic titles to come over, right? Years where people really had no legal avenue to get certain games, no way to legally download and play Donkey Kong, right?
Yep.
So
like,
really raising, in a way, I guess, awareness with us talking right now about this for the audience. If we can get the awareness to where people are choosing these methods of preservation over, you know, the attempts to diminish this, will keep this hobby going for years. But, if we do sort of roll over and allow companies to take away avenues to enjoy what our games that we had played in the past and what we've enjoyed, then these moments, these memories, these experiences will just remain nostalgia in the minds of old fucks like Mars and I. So,
Yeah.
Mars, you clearly had something good to say to add on to that, but I just sort of wanted to get on a soapbox for a minute there and say,
Yeah.
like, it's one of the reasons why I wanted to make this channel with you, is because there is the passion of people like us needed to keep these hobbies alive and to give them to a new generation and show them how it could be, instead of a company giving you paid service and saying this is what is.
Yeah, and I will say, like, I actually read a news article. I think it was on Kotaku or Polygon. I should have saved it, but it was talking about the Nintendo's closing of the shop, and like how, like, obviously, like, there are legitimate reasons as to why they're doing that. But what is unfortunate is that there was a report. I think it was the Game History Museum, the Video Game History Museum, reached out to Nintendo to be like, "Hey, can you give us, like, or can you do something to, like, so we can preserve this?" And apparently Nintendo did not reach out, and this is not surprising to Nintendo to like to. We both have talked a lot about how Nintendo has this very, like, there's a lot of conservative things about them. It's not surprising that Nintendo's like, no, we're not going to give you our old stuff. This is all our things. The decisions we make are final, and this is what we're doing.
Well, and I understand from a cultural perspective, trying to, like, understand exactly why they would do that, right? Like, if I very venerable, borderline, by Western standards, ancient company at this point wants to act as the curator of its own content. They want to say, we are the distributor of these memories, emotions, and whatnot. That's what we build our company on. That's how we keep the experience pure. It's a very Disney-like mentality towards it. With
even
Disney,
if it won't exist anymore, besides in
right,
their
Disney had
hard
a whole business model actually for this
Yeah.
that probably inspired Nintendo, and it was called the Vault. You can only buy home releases of Disney animated classics when Disney released them from the vault. And it was only for a certain amount of time. And they would actually, and this shit's wild too, they would buy back the remaining copies from stores like Walmart and big boxes after that date passed to recall things back into the vault, to really actually lock down that exclusivity of you can only buy it between this date and that date. And obviously it wasn't a perfect system because distribution has always been sort of a wild west, forever. But what you see there, right, is early efforts by an old house to control its IP by dictating when the people who have the cherished memories of these, when and where they can access it, and when and where and what formats they can own it on. Because just because Snow White came out of the vault back in the day, and thankfully Disney Plus has totally changed this, and I see Nintendo's moving towards Nintendo Switch Online as sort of
it seems like they're
streaming
moving towards
equivalent of that. But it's not like with Disney, where Disney has total ownership of distribution and everything of those, right? They had to hash out special deals, Nintendo, to get Donkey Kong to be on the service. And those deals won't be hashed out to bring Final Fantasy games in their original form to the service, because Square Enix, a separate and venerable Japanese software house, also wants to act as a curator for their content. So the notion, now revisiting the original point, that Nintendo's being approached by ostensibly a Western organization saying, give us masters of your shit so we can preserve it for video game history. Nintendo says, nah, we've been around for over 100 years. We've got this. I can't necessarily be mad at them, but as somebody who wants the same things I had available for the next generation, it is disappointing because it shows a lack of commitment to the products they've already sold, saying, if you have those memories of Zelda and Mario and Donkey Kong, great, you can buy them on the next console if you threw out your old console. Is sort of what they've committed to, but that entirely leaves out the new generations being able to experience the crunch and retroness of it all.
The crunch.
And I'm not trying to say that I'm opposed to the March of Progress, or that Nintendo has to remain compatible with the March of Progress, or compatible with the forces that would stand against this March of Progress. But it's I can't help but feeling a little disappointed as a fan of the company. Um,
Yeah. Well, it's like
being fully realistic and understanding why they do the things they do, it also still, disappoints a little bit that we essentially, the fans, have to take the onus on ourselves to do all of this work to
yeah.
preserve what is essentially a beautiful and rich history.
Well, that's the thing. These, I mean, like, if there's any reason to support companies like Analog or EverDrive, which we can get into a little bit of that later, it's this sort of like for video game preservation, and B, to kind of, and this, I've actually talked to you about this before, but me getting EverDrives, which I would love for us to talk to you about that in a moment, but me getting an EverDrive is, in a way, a stance against expensive retro hardware, because now I don't have to, like, I would love to buy those, but because Earthbound is now $400, that is not reasonable for me. You know what
Right. Well, and that's the thing too, because if you think about it, right, I have this argument lately that Nintendo actually is a toy company, and all the friction that the gaming community has ever had with Nintendo is actually a lack of realization that Nintendo is a toy company that produces video games as a toy, not as a living, breathing, interactive experience that's meant to exist in perpetuity or whatnot. Like, Nintendo has closure. Nintendo is making games actively, with a second team making the next game after that and
Yep.
preparing for that, because they understand that, this is a moment in time in their product cycles.
Yep.
If something's really good, like say Wind Waker, well, shit, yeah, they can go remake it at a later date for whatever. But gamers feeling owed that something that they bought will exist in perpetuity, I understand where the friction is with Nintendo. Like, right, I think that any software I bought on the 3DS should be able to be played forever, but Nintendo gives you a very obvious obstacle. Not a lot of devices out there are made with a second touchscreen attached to it to easily be played, so importing that retro experience is not the same as saying, well, I bought Final Fantasy 1 on the PS3, and since that's attached to the account and platforms are pretty much universal on the big two, PlayStation and Xbox, you can just play that same square image run on newer hardware with more power, and now you can just throw an algorithmic filter on it without having to do anything, to actually make that experience better or more modern. But Nintendo, to convert some of these things that, right, their toy mentality of, we want to make this hardware that you interact with in a new way, you're automatically ruining the control scheme from the get.
Yep.
For preservation's sake. So yeah, it's hard when Nintendo wants to shut down the 3DS eShop, because there goes my backup of Pokemon Moon.
Yep, exactly.
I have to go hunt that cartridge down if I ever want to play Pokemon Moon again, and I have no idea how or when they're ever going to be able to remake Pokemon Moon without that second screen, without them totally tearing that game down to its base components and remaking it to not use the screen, which requires a lot of effort, which means it's not something that's going to happen casually, right? It's not like Square Enix, which can release Final Fantasy 1 on every platform since the NES.
Yep.
We're locked in, and the fact that Nintendo, maybe they're more zen than me and they lack the attachment. Right? Maybe they are trying to tell me I need to move on from my retro love and my ability to do this, but
I don't know.
We should fight back though.
Yeah,
with
I would never.
EverDrive, you're right.
Yeah,
you are absolutely right. Between whether your solution is an expensive analog product to emulate the hardware perfectly, or if you're just software banging it out on the cheapest hardware you can, there's no real shame in any of it. However you consume it is totally up to you, as long as you're enjoying yourself. But I think the movement is, there should always be an available way. We should always fight, right? As a unified group, us retro gamers, we should stick together and make sure that we always have a sort of a proper emulation of all of these experiences available in perpetuity.
Yep.
Fight back against Nintendo suing for, against things like EverDrive and the ability to sell ROM cards. Fight back against, the hardware or whatever. Yeah, Nintendo has a right to make the dime off of that, but,
Hmm.
Yeah, at some point you got to fight for what you believe in, and
Yep.
I believe that these experiences are important enough that things like EverDrive and Analog and modding your own retro hardware that you find and refurbishing it and modding old games so you can play them, in ways that the developers never intended. Like these are all things that we should absolutely be fighting for. You're right on that,
Yeah.
100%.
Gonna take a moment to give a shout out to Cosmic Sarah K, a great supporter of my other channel and now of this channel. So thank you for coming.
Whoa. Welcome in. Feel free to, drop comments on whatever you're thinking, feeling, and vibing in the chat. I especially love to be disagreed with, so feel free to do
Yes,
so.
we'll definitely
We are a
take
talk show.
we will take any open questions or comments or discussion. Of course, I might not get to them until we finish our stream of thought. But what I did want to go transition to. Okay, so to repeat what I was saying, so it can all be sort of together. So speaking of EverDrive, we are in a bit of a crisis of game preservation right now. I mean, obviously, this is probably the least of the crisis, the humanitarian crises that are happening due to this, but it's included.
Right.
In it.
So, and thank you for that segue, because we did want to discuss a smidge of current events going on too, because a lot of things that I notice in my time in being a gamer is that there's not a lot of connect between what's happening in the real world to what's happening to our hobby. Those effects aren't actively or acutely felt very frequently. But now we're in a stage, right, where the supply chain crisis has taken hold, and now suddenly gamers everywhere are like, oh, holy crap, if the people can't get me my chips, I can't upgrade my computer, right, has been this new thing. Or, oh, man, trying to get the Analog Pocket. I waited 500 days after I pre-ordered that just because the unexpected snafus and the supply chain crisis. So as with an eye towards that and the mentality, as I'm sure a lot of people are aware or potentially not aware, most people will be at the time of listening to this as on the secondaries, is that there's been an invasion into the Ukrainian sovereign territories by Russia, and without nitpicking the politics there too much, the Ukraine is going to be in a state of a little bit of a crisis for a while, especially with things like shipping and industry, because Ukraine is a huge economy. They make and ship a lot of goods from diverse sources all over the world. And a lot of rare earth foundries that exist to make rare earth components actually exist in that sort of region of the world. If you draw sort of a straight line from, China, the middle of China, basically going all the way over above what we consider to be the Middle East, that's a really resource-rich region in which a lot of components that are favorite toys, video games, and they're all made of these things, these rare earth components. And they're the EverDrive cart that we mentioned earlier, which is a valuable tool, I think, in video game preservation, allowing people to, within one cartridge, enjoy most of a retro games library for systems.
I'm gonna get a picture of it up on the
such as the
stream.
Super Nintendo, the Game Boy Advance, and that is a product that is exclusively distributed via Ukraine. So now suddenly we have this, real world event, this, war ostensibly, that threatens one of the most popular avenues for people to play games that they have not played before from the retro generations, an affordable way, right? These EverDrive carts, instead of buying, the whole ass like retro experience to get Earthbound, for example, where if you wanted to play that, just on the Super Nintendo on in cartridge form, you're gonna have to either get a flash cart on the cheap, which is basically the same as what you're getting through the EverDrive, or you have to spend $400 on an original copy.
Yep.
Like it's ridiculous that we've been forced into this point, but I'm so gracious that we have things like EverDrive, which that gratitude is now giving way to fear, because I'm like, oh God, what if this is the only place we're ever going to get an FX pack or an EverDrive level of quality of these products, right? Like
Yep.
there's other carts out there that can do this, but there's a reason why EverDrive is almost the equivalent of a retro game household name. Even whether you use it or you don't use it, you know what it is. And the fact that we might lose that tool over world politics is just one of those things that we have to pay attention to. Like, right, if we want to do our part to keep these things going, we need to have somebody, in other places in the world start to take up this mantle. It can't just be one guy, right? Doing things like analog and bearing the entire weight of making high quality retro consoles, or it can't be just the one guy from Ukraine making all of the sort of, like, right, there's so much centralization around, like, I keep hearing it's just one dude and he makes all these things. Well, if just one dude gets cut off by shipping reasons, even mundane ones during a pandemic, from the rest of the world, then suddenly the rest of the world loses access of a really reliable way to enjoy an entire swath of art and culture. That if you try and enjoy this like other forms of art and culture on the free, like, right, I can Google image search any piece of fine art in existence and generally get super high res versions of it, right? Not the same, but I can still experience that art. I can find almost any song in existence for free on YouTube if I'm willing to stomach the advertising. I cannot play almost every retro game in existence outside of buying quasi-legal solutions like this, right?
Or
I can't
emulation.
just Google Super Mario Brothers on the SNES and start playing that in browser.
Yeah.
So we lose the art if we lose these people. Do we lose it forever? No, but somebody else is going to have to pick up that mantle. If somehow EverDrives are no longer a thing that get to be shipped,
Yep.
somebody's going to have to pick up that mantle and start doing this for themselves.
Yep.
And I lack that technical knowledge. I'm just getting to the point where I'm learning. Hell, my good friend Mars here is actually a crack shot at soldering, and we want to start making consoles together. And I'm like, wow, I've taken my first steps into a larger world, in my terrible Obi-Wan accent, but it's true. Like, it's like suddenly
Original Game Boy.
feel this need to do this not just for us and not just for our own interests, but to, yeah, there it is. But not to just not just protect this for me, right? Because it would be selfish just to do this for us. It's like getting in this community, you almost feel compelled to give back in some way, because every one of us that chooses to give back is contributing that energy to keep the whole project alive, right?
Yep.
So where we go from this, I send prayers and good energy to not just our FX Pack and EverDrive making brother in Ukraine, but also to all the other Ukrainians and Russians, because there are people on civilians on either side of a conflict that get caught in any sort of crossfire. So just everybody who is involved in that area, we send out our love from here at Starship Pacific to them.
Yep.
But with that out of the way, I think we should shift focus from preserving games to playing them. What do you think?
Yeah. Are we ready to dive a little deeper into Zelda?
Yeah, so I figure what we can do is we can fire up that Link to the Past where you've got that locked in at. And we were going to start from, and now to you all at home, I told Mars here to go ahead and pick out what is essentially what he thinks was the most iconic part of the game. Not just the most iconic, but I was like, I want you to have fun while you're playing this. So, with an emphasis on that, we're going to be starting before what I understand is the Turtle Rock dungeon?
Yes, Turtle Rock, which is the last dungeon before the last dungeon.
Yeah, so
the penultimate dungeon, you could say.
Why'd you choose Turtle Rock? What about this is going to make all those Link to the Past stands at home go, yeah, and all those people who are never having played Link to the Past go, okay, tell me more.
It's a really good question. I picked it because I think that Turtle Rock, and especially the dungeon after Turtle Rock, which is the last dungeon, is basically like the creme. What is it? The creme de la crop. What do you call that? Did I say that right?
Creme de la creme or cream of the crop. I think you just sort of fused two aphorisms together there.
The creme de la creme. It's really like where, you know, at this point you have all your gadgets, your tools. It's that moment in the Zelda game. It's the, you know, Ganon's castle, those kind of things where, like, you know, you really, as Link, you are expected to showcase like your heroism, your true ability, you know, like what are you made of? And so I always thought that Turtle Rock to me is a very unique dungeon, because it's like there's just a lot of, I don't know, it's just kind of weird. It's like in a turtle, for one. Well, not a turtle, it's in a rock turtle.
That is so cool. Okay, and you definitely have me on the hook for this, because
and then you have Ganon's Tower after that, which, you know, goes without saying.
Yeah. And now, just for the listeners and viewers at home, for any game that's, you know, more than 15 years old, we're going to be taking a sort of spoilery approach.
Oh yeah.
We're gonna avoid trying to discuss the plot at too much length, but the fact that Ganon is a villain in this game is a bit of a spoiler in itself. But again, you know, it's pop culture, right? Try watching Fight Club without knowing the truth about Tyler Durden. I knew about Tyler Durden
or playing Final Fantasy VII without knowing the twist.
You know, right. Wait, you're telling me that Eris does not make it to disc 3?
Oh my god. How could you say this?
They put her in the Shinra rocket and blasted her off on disc 2?
You can't spoil the story for everybody.
Sent her into space to combat the meteor with her bare hands and her full metal staff?
We're gonna be kicked off of Twitch for this.
Kicked off of Twitch for spoiling the true ending of Final Fantasy VII.
That's actually gonna be the ending of the remake. We're calling it. We're calling it now. That's the ending of. That's what's going to happen in remake.
Aerith flies away safely to fight Meteor with her bare hands on the front of Sid's rocket.
Like she one punch man's it.
One punch. No, just one staff woman.
Yeah, one staff woman.
One staff.
Just like beats it like a baseball.
Yeah, just like yeets it off into another, just like baseball, you know, like home run, shoots it off into deep space. Crashes into Spira millennia later. They've already had, you know, they're pretty much like the failure Final Fantasy universe.
Oh man, we can't get into the theory crafting of Spira and Final Fantasy VII. We'll be here all night.
Oh yeah, we will be here all night. But reeling it back to where we're starting with this dungeon. To those of you who haven't played a Zelda game before, dungeons are like the pivotal part of the experience. I mean, it's hard to think of a Zelda game that isn't secretly divided into 8 dungeons somehow, or, you know, subdivided into a series of dungeons, and it's usually 8. Usually it's like, go to the 8 dungeons and collect the 8 MacGuffins, and sometimes they'll break it up into like the first 3 dungeons. You need to get these 3 items, and that's like, psych, you need to go get more items, and then it will add up to 8 later on. But this game, do they do the 8 thing, or is it 7? Because I know there's 7 sages, which is a thing in Ocarina and Link to the Past.
Well, let's see here. I'm gonna put that sound back on. Boop-a-doop-a-doo-doo. All right, and JB, you should be able to see this on the Discord now. But I believe this one is Hold on, I'm just making sure the sound isn't too loud. Are you there, JB?
I am.
All right, excellent.
Cool. So it looks like you've got all the crap.
Yes. So this was a save file that I loaded. Is everything. Yeah, so you can see here the crystals. There's 7 crystals. So and it coincides with the 7 sages. That's a bit of a Link to the Past lore. The sages have been imprisoned here by Ganon in the Dark World. And Ganon, so not to get too deep into the Zelda lore, but like this takes place in the timeline of the Hero Falls, which, funny thing, Nintendo didn't really have that in mind when they made this game. The Hero Falls comes after Ocarina of Time.
Right. So for I'm gonna digress or break this down to the key things for people who haven't Zelda'd before. So Zelda was never made to be one consistent universe. They were just making more games. In fact, Link to the Past, if you hit up the wiki, this game was supposed to be what Four Swords would eventually become, where Shigeru Miyamoto actually wanted you to have controlling a party of 4, which he described as an elf, as if elf is its own class, sword fighter, wizard, and archer. And then all of those characters got rolled into the game, and they basically said, fuck it, we'll stick with Link, because what you're asking for is Shigeru Miyamoto, we can't do. Other cut features from the game include the ability to start forest fires, which are field fires, like basically brush fires, like light the grass on fire and it'll all burn eventually. That got implemented later in the Four Swords as well. But so these games were never meant to have a consistent chronology, but fans being fans always did that. So they played off of an idea of a chronology a little bit in Ocarina of Time, and then I will in no uncertain terms say Nintendo fucked themselves by creating a chronology where they're like, hey, Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time happened, time travel shenanigans happened, and now there's 2 timelines, and fans have been looking like Charlie Day at a whiteboard and Always Sunny in Philadelphia ever since, making Pepe Silva theories about which game fits where in the chronology and whatnot. But as you referred to, this one fits very much into the timeline where essentially there's a bad timeline in Ocarina where Link left and never came back because he went to the other timeline, and that Hyrule winds up being kind of shitty.
Yep. And so what happened in that timeline is, you know, not to bore people with tears, I guess, with it, but basically Ganon got trapped in this dark world, which I'll show you the difference. There's a dark and a light world. He got trapped by some sages, and then eventually he trapped the sages himself, and that's where we are right now.
Yeah.
Long story short. So this is the light world.
Which is to say that all Zelda games have essentially one of 2 plot modes: save the princess to save the world, or you didn't realize you were saving the princess but actually are to save the world. And that's it. There is no variation. Everything is a take on, you must save this heroine to be able to defeat the ultimate evil, who is typically named some variation on Ganon.
Yep.
Now, rarely in some of the games where they go what I call the Four Swords universe, where Link finds a sword that becomes critical to his adventures, that literally splits him into 4 different aspects of himself, so you can run around making Link walk in mini marching band formations, essentially. But in those timelines, there's the Wind Sage or Wizard or whatever. The Nintendo's shifted around the dialogue a bit to avoid religious implications in the English releases, but he's basically Wind Wizard, who's like, oh yeah, Ganondorf, that guy sucks. Good thing he doesn't exist or is defeated now.
Yep.
And I'm going to try and be your main antagonist here. And usually you must save the princess to save the world in those ones as well. So really, well, the antagonist is either some version of Ganon or Vati, or some decoy protagonist like in this game and in Twilight Princess and others, where it's like, is that bird really the villain? No, he actually just works for Ganon.
Surprise! The
Wind Waker.
A trope in Zelda is surprise. The villain you were fighting all along is actually Ganon, or was controlled by Ganon, or works Vati. For Ganon, or Vati. Yeah, or Vati. But did they ever link Vati to Ganon?
Oh, he's sometimes linked to Ganon, but he's very much always a separate entity. Specifically, the best bit is in the Four Swords game, where he's like the boss and you're fighting him, and then like in the 5th chapter, you go to this area and it's like, hey, this is a sacred Gerudo site, and somebody stole the trident from here. Oh, the person who stole the trident is the first male descendant from the Gerudo tribe in 100 years, and you're like, those who know the history of Ganon and what they're like, Ganon's here, or Ganondorf, and then you don't really get shit about him. You finish out the game, beat Vati, and then Vati's done, and he's like, but there's a more evil guy out there now. And Ganon basically became himself while you were off dealing with the evil guy and have to fight Ganon in the end. So that's a rare example of a Zelda game that is very good that people haven't played very much for a lot of reasons, and B, a Zelda game that successfully has both Bati and Ganon both being the final villain.
Yep.
That's like a total anomaly.
All right, so
it's a Four Swords adventure game you don't have to play with other people, which is a common reason why people didn't play it, because they thought it was multiplayer only.
So, okay, so now we have arrived at where Turtle Rock is. So the funny thing about this is that, you know, it's up here. Now in the Dark World, the number 7 is up here where I am, but it's not here in the Light World. You actually, when you get here in the Dark World, there's no way to get in. So what you have to do is come here in the Light World, and there's a heavy rock here. So you gotta move that rock, and then you got a little puzzle here. When I knock that right one, it makes a little like bring noise. If I hit this one,
Natch with the puzzles.
Yeah, if it hit this one, then I would have to restart. So I have to go in an order. And now I made a portal to the Dark World. And so now, see, this is Turtle Rock. See that his mouth is closed. So the way to get it open is there's a little symbol here of little magical forces that I get. And this is the Quake one. So I get to do that, and I get to open up his little mouth.
I'm loving this dungeon style. One thing I love about the 2D Zeldas is that, like, right, in a 3D Zelda, oftentimes your dungeon is very much just like an entry to the hole in the ground to get there, and then you have these big elaborate set pieces or rooms, or maybe it's an outdoor area, but there's no, like, seeing the enormity of the size of the dungeon from the outside the same way like the entrances in the 2D games sort of do. And it's right, that representative imagination of like, oh man, this huge entrance, it's shaped like a turtle, how did that get here and whatnot. And you don't get a lot of that in the 3D Zelda games. I will say that Breath of the Wild, I'm not mentioning that specifically in all of the games I'm mentioning here, because that's such a step forward for not only the 3D games themselves, like the franchise as a whole, and breaking a lot of the rituals of Zelda up into new format, which for better or worse it succeeds on. But yeah, really these traditional dungeon designs here are where it's at.
So one thing I'll kind of go over a bit in this is the level design, which I think is superb in these games. So it asks you, oh yeah, the save file that I got is called Xavier, or Xavier, I don't know how to pronounce that. It says, do you possess a medicine of magic? If not, I recommend against going any further. So that's a little hint for you to get what in the upper left you can see where it says a 1/2, which basically means that I use up half my magic instead of all of my magic. Like basically magic. Oh, hold on, I gotta correct your camera. Magic use is halved, which is nice. So they kind of hint at you with that. Another thing is there's this Cane of Samara, which I think you actually get outside of a dungeon. I can't remember if you get it in a dungeon or not. I can't remember. I think you do. So like you're not able to get past this section in the beginning without this cane.
You know, it's interesting that cane actually makes a return. For one only purpose only, it's like a block making version of that cane that doesn't use magic in Oracle of Ages.
Yeah, see, makes a block.
And that's one thing I love about Zelda is like they don't exactly always recycle items. They always do like these little variations, like the long shot, the hook claw, the claw shot. Like, yes, it's just reskinning on the same thing, but the way all those items translates to each game universe, there's always like a necessary feel for it. I'll say that there are very, very few items you get in Zelda that feel wasted. That they don't have like a definitive use. Like I know there are Zelda gamers out, myself included, that in the 2D games it's like what you carry in your 2 slots is like your regular loadout is like, it's like a lifestyle.
So here's an interesting by the way, here's an interesting puzzle. Sorry to interrupt. So check this out. So when I was back here, I don't know if you can hear it, but you can hear this noise when I turn, and I'm like, what's that noise? So then I go up here, There's an eyeball that opens up and shoots at me when I face it. Now if I look away, I'm like, oh, it opens, but how do I get in there? You just gotta use your noggin. Charge your sword. And go out through that way.
Nice. See, yeah, puzzles like this, like, right as we're an adult, it's like, see the genius? If you just follow the cues of it and you just follow along. But what actually that looked like to us as kids was
like magic.
Oh my god, if somebody doesn't tell me how to do this, I'm literally going to scream. Or, oh my god, I got it by sheer dumb luck.
Yep.
Because I would say, to Nintendo's credit, they've done a good job at making content for 12 and 13-year-olds be available for all ages.
Yeah. It's still fun when you're a kid.
Done that same puzzle without having like the audio cues. You know, you could drop any one element of that puzzle solution and still have it be a puzzle that you could survive with some brute forcing, and it would be totally unfair. But that little gimme cue is what makes it so I think that, you know, a clever 8-year-old could be like, oh, okay. The only thing I really struggled with in a lot of the Zelda games was actually being able to live long enough to figure out the puzzles, because I'm so bad about killing enemies as well as trying to figure out puzzles at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
I always, in games as a kid, I ran from every fight. I ran from as much shit as I could in Pokemon, never fought wild Pokemon monsters. I would never kill random enemies in dungeons or in battlefields, which is funny now because, you know, in a dungeon style game, I'm like, all right, let's hunt all the life out of the room so I can have some peace and quiet. So it's like, you know, live and learn. But just thinking of how, you know, when I played Oracle of Ages as a 10-year-old on Game Boy Color, or maybe an 11-year-old, I don't really remember those times clearly. But I remember there's a kid in my neighborhood, right? And his name was, I think, Lucas. And Lucas had a copy of Oracle of Ages. And I saw that, and I'm like, that's a Zelda game. I've heard Zelda games are really cool. A lot of people really like them, and they talk about them. And at this point, I started to get game magazines every so often. Because, right, as a kid, like, getting a magazine when the internet doesn't exist was a thing that I think that we don't talk about as adults, that kids just did.
Oh,
like,
yeah, game magazines were the shit, man.
Well, not just game magazines, but really the entirety of me getting into manga was seeing at a gas station they had a copy of Shonen Jump, and the guy in the gas station said it literally got dropped off by mistake. Like, the guy left a box there, and he's like, I didn't order a bunch of anime books to sell here, and I don't even blah, blah, blah. So I bought it for the cover price on it, which was $5, and it was a brick, right, of just several issues or chapters of all the most popular manga in the world at the time, and it was a brand new endeavor in the US. It's just funny how, like, you know, you buy little things like that, and it becomes so foundational, but it's... I find I don't know what that looks like to a younger person in the internet generation now, because most of the content you get is fed to you and curated by a feed. Like, I don't know what discovery of a magazine's worth of content and information looks like, right?
Yeah. No, the Nintendo Power was like, I mean, Nintendo Power, EG game, was it EB game?
I never got to get Nintendo Power. All of my friends got Nintendo Power. I was always so jealous.
What were the other ones? It was EB, was it EB games or EB or EBX or?
My memory is failing me. See, my big thing at the time was I didn't buy video game magazines until I got into Game Informer in my teens, because I was really into Scry, which was for Magic cards, because I was back in I was really big into Magic when I was a preteen. So I would always be getting like cards and collectible magazines that'd be about collecting action figures and collecting cards, which lo and behold makes sense why I'm such an erotic collector of things later in life.
Oh man, do you see that puzzle? That's a tough puzzle. See, that's why I like this dungeon, because like it really turns up the puzzle difficulties.
I wonder the wisdom of somebody who built a dungeon with just like rolling spike traps that roll back and forth.
I know, like who? Oh man, like you
who
just
is supposed to get through this? It's like they were just daring, you know, people to come and like challenge this.
Yeah, right. It reminds me. I always had this joke when I was like when I was younger in like high school and such with my friends then, which was like there's some random guy in video game worlds who like goes around and sprays items with like shiny stuff. Because like like in Resident Evil and all that, they always have these like little shiny, like this is the item that you want.
Well, it also just makes me think about the guys who, you know, do all the repairing in video games too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally.
Well, funny enough, we mentioned Hollow Knight, right? That's a character in Hollow Knight.
That was
and you can
spoofed.
find
Yes.
him.
Yes.
Have you ever found Menderbug?
I believe I have. If not, I've seen it on the internet.
So Menderbug, he mends all the signs you break.
Yes.
And the way to find him, and you can, it's harder to catch him anywhere else, but right at Dirtmouth, if you go down the well and break the sign down there and go back up and come back down, he has a higher than normal chance of being there because it's the easiest, like, you can go up and come down back and forth to like a fixed sign that's breakable, that's near like a save point or something. And I finally took the time to get him one day, and when I got down there, I was so excited, I threw an Eldritch Blast and killed him. And I was like, no! Because if you kill him, he's done, and signs will never fix themselves again in Hollow Knight.
That's very unfortunate.
Oh, yeah, there's a character like that in Zelda, actually. I think it is in Oracle of Seasons, and I wish somebody would correct me on this because I'm too lazy to look it up, but I'm gonna call him Sign Man because I think his name is the Sign Man, and he keeps track of how many signs you've broken. And
yeah. I've heard. I remember that.
Violent he gets towards you. He's like, "Don't you have any appreciation for signs?"
Yeah.
And then he like he just comes after you with a sign.
Yep, I think I remember that.
Oh you know God. What I really want to do actually is I want to the first game I play through with my hands, I want to do Mole Mania.
Yeah. Oh, we got a new first time chatter. Pug King O. Hello.
Hi.
Welcome to the Streamcast.
Yeah, this is Starship Pacific, and we are two dudes who are talking about the state of retro video gaming. Well, we talked about a retro video game. Well,
yes.
He plays a retro video game.
It's like triple layer of retro video games.
Yeah, but nothing heady though. Keep it easy, keep it breezy, keep it light. Retroception. Yeah. No thanks. I've already had enough Christopher Nolan for one lifetime. When I figure out like the actual plotting and can get like a visual chart for how Tenet works, then I'll feel comfortable again. But somebody hasn't infographicked Tenet down to the level of Inception yet, and I think the world desperately needs that explainer.
Wait, nobody's done a... Okay, no. Dude, this is the internet. Somebody's definitely done an in-depth explainer of Tenet.
No, not an explainer. What I need is a 4 idiots video, like visual infographic. You know, this is what all the timelines are and what everybody was doing and how everything laid up, because that like, right, they made one of those for people who could not understand Infinity War, and then suddenly when that existed, a lot of the common criticisms about, or not Infinity War, Endgame, a lot of those criticisms started to evaporate on the internet because you could just point people to the thing that literally shows why it all makes sense, right? Because you have a graphic that shows it all being played out. They need that for Tenet.
Mm-hmm.
That movie is stupid confusing and almost unnecessarily so, because, right, like a normal director who didn't want their movie to be intentionally confusing would have had any of the characters at any point be like 5% more clear about their intentions or motivations, and it would have been so much better off.
Pug King says, and I don't know if you see the chat as well, but says the M. Night Shyamalan plot twist is that I'm also playing a retro video game. Oh shit, it just goes deeper. We're all...
M. Night Shyamalan plot twist is that the video game is this stream, and he's the one playing the stream right now.
Oh my god, that's too much for me, man. It's too much.
Too better for me, IRL.
So I did want to comment on these little like squiggly pipes. When I was a kid, I always thought they were really cool. I don't know, just like whoa, look at that! I just kind of zip around on these little pipes.
So what this reminds me of is Bugs Bunny's Crazy Castle.
Oh, what was
Bugs
that?
Bunny's Crazy Castle has a whole series of levels where it's just pipes going all over, and because you can't see the whole screen at once, right? Like
Shit.
you can enter a pipe and then just exit to an enemy walking over to you and deading you. So
Yeah.
it's like nailing the timing of the pipes and figuring out where the enemies are going, who also use the pipes to traverse, and some of which are following you, and some of which are just walking on static loops. It's great.
Was that Bugs Bunny game? Was that a SNES or Nintendo?
That is NES.
That's what I thought. Okay.
I love that game. That'd be another one to revisit someday. But yeah, I think what I said earlier that I want to play Mole Mania, I think it's because I want to go and start revisiting the lineage of HAL Labs. Because HAL Laboratories is one
totally.
of the most interesting lineages in my
That would be cool. Yeah, we should totally do some HAL deep dive. By the way,
I mean, hell, we could start on Air Fortress. You could play the entirety of Air Fortress in one stream. That game is a trip.
By the way, big key already. So this is an interesting part of this dungeon because you get the big key very soon and you're like, what the fuck? Why am I getting the big key so soon? But this dungeon still has much more to give.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say that seems like we got to that big key pretty quickly because, you know, in my experience of Zelda games, the big key is like, oh hey, I've completed 75 to 85% of this dungeon. Like at the point where you get the big key in a lot of Zelda dungeons, not everyone, but a lot of cases, you've already found the door.
Yep. So yeah, or the chest in this case as well, because you need the big key to open the chest. Which I think that's the case in Ocarina as well. Some other games maybe not, but
oh, see, now me not having played Ocarina or this game, yeah, that having to go and lock a chest with a big key.
Wait,
extra contrived bullshit.
You haven't played Ocarina? That should be another game that we play on this as well.
That's gonna be all you, friendo. I am so happy to
even the 3DS version.
Hey, if we well, that's going to be harder to get going on a stream.
Oh, yeah, totally.
That being said, if we want to turn this into a 3-part Zelda series, we can have our next show 2 weeks from now, I'm thinking. Have our next show together be Ocarina of Time, and we can do this. You know,
that or the direct game that came out after this, which was the Oracle game. Or no, Link's Awakening and then Oracle games. We could. I would also like to see you show me one of the Oracle games.
Sure.
Because you know you love those games.
Oh yeah, I mean that's see, that's a fun one to talk about right here because those games did something really cool that Game Boy games started to do to essentially. The Game Boy games had a bad habit that sort of started with Pokemon of breaking what could change a near identical experience into 2 different experiences into 2 games. Sort of became a development thing between Golden Sun, I'll say in specific, and the Oracle games, where they did interlinked plots where you could play one or the other, send data to the other one, and then have that change the experience of the game, which not just gave you the incentive to play Oracle of Ages, for example, and Oracle of Seasons, but it gave you an incentive to play them in the reverse.
Well, and I think also you got
new seasons and play through to Ages, because those are 2 totally different experiences that sort of meet in the middle when you complete the games, and it's like you're going to the other world, and then in the back half in the Oracle of Ages and Seasons games, a separate new plot that you can't play without
another game.
Oracle of Ages comes in, where common with a theme, Zelda finally shows up at the end of your second playthrough game and is like, I'm here to help at last. I've come all the way from Hyrule. And Kom and Kotak, the 2 witches, the twin Rova, show up and they're like, that's what we've been waiting for. We only hired the previous 2 villains to cause so much chaos that you would inevitably be drawn to fix it, so we could kidnap you and use your light to revive Ganon from the dead.
Of course.
God damn it, every time it ends with Zelda and Ganon. Zelda needs to help defeat the primeval, and Ganon shows up and is like, actually, the primeval is me. That's my Ganon impression.
So I got the mirror. I get the mirror shield. Very, very apt for Zelda dungeon. I think.
Nice. You get to Let me guess. Those lasers that were firing in that one place, you can deflect those now?
Yeah. So,
yeah.
fun thing about Link to the Past that we can highlight, and you can even see this in the wiki if you want. That game, or this game, has firsts of many items. I think the mirror shield is a first, but I'm not 100% certain.
Yes, it's the mirror shield is a first, and then I think the first time they reused the mirror shield is in the Oracle games.
Yeah, or the Oracle. Oh shit, I'm a bunny now. Oracle and Link's Awakening has a lot of the things that this game has. Oh my god, I'm getting my ass kicked.
Actually, but only one of the Oracle games.
It's okay, I got a bunch of fairies, so if I die, it's fine. But
yeah, it becomes, because the mirror shield itself is only necessary as like an item to ages, but I'm not sure if you can get it in seasons.
Okay. Oh,
yeah,
I already went that way. Okay.
That just leads me to think, if we're gonna do those as a segment, figuring out where the hell I would play in that experience to show the viewers at home. I might have to go do some looking up.
Yeah, I mean, we can definitely find some save states as well.
Yeah. So I'm cruising through the wiki here and going over some of the facts, and I dove into this a little bit before we started talking here. But things that I found really interesting is that they made a lot of little changes to the Game Boy Advance version that actually seem like they tried to take some of the wonkier translations of like the Nintendo fears religion in the 90s and translated everything to not mention religious references, and they sort of actually walked that back for the Game Boy Advance version.
Yeah, I think that they realized that, oh my god, did you see what just happened? I just got like a bunch of fairies.
Pieces of Heart were added to the Game Boy Advance version, which are a recurring thing later in the Zelda games.
Yeah. Well, Pieces of Heart were in this one as well. That was...
Oh, they are?
Yeah.
Oh, no, sorry, that was something that was new to this. That wasn't in the first Zelda. I see.
Indeed. How do I get... Let's see. This place...
God, it's so funny. So the wiki article for this game, there's a link off under the story heading to Fictional Chronology: The Legend of Zelda. I clicked on that link, and it's longer.
Oh god.
The fictional chronology of Zelda is so... Oh, see, it's the whole Legend of Zelda article it links off to.
Oh, yeah.
I did not know that Koji Kondo did this game.
Oh yeah, didn't he? Hasn't he been doing it since the beginning, or did somebody else do the original?
I didn't know that Koji Kondo did more than Mario, honestly.
Yeah. I think this is like along with Mario, one of his like kind of legendary, sort of thingies.
Well, that makes me wonder because the original Legend of Zelda theme, I've never heard, I don't think of it as like a Koji Kondo original. I think of a Mario theme. So it's like, did he make the Legend of Zelda
a Koji Kondo original? But yeah, he wrote the Zelda theme.
Yeah.
Yep.
Producer, programmer, writer, composer, Koji Kondo. Yeah, damn.
Yeah, what a boss, right?
Yeah, hell yeah. Yeah, back to that
shit, I'm getting rolled over on some spikes.
Article on learning all sorts of things. It's crazy because more music, because there simply is just so much more music in this game than the original Zelda title, that this game winds up having so many songs that act as the skeleton for songs that people like, right? I heard it in Ocarina of Time, and this is, that's Kakariko Village, and it's like, no, Kakariko Village is Link to the Past. And it's like, the overworld theme, Link to the Past, the dungeon theme, Link to the Past, it all comes back. Even if they change it drastically, they'll still use like notes of these originals as sort of like the structure. And you're more of a music head than I am, so you can sort of comment on, sort of what that sounds like to you. But
well, what's interesting, so what I think of when you bring that up is like, so I'm gonna pause here because it's really hard to to concentrate on this section while saying this.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
so you know me, I'm an old Game Grumps fan, and so Game Grumps used to have a person, Aaron Hansen and Jontron, and they kind of had this feud where Jontron liked Ocarina of Time and Aaron Hansen likes Link to the Past. So like
Classic.
so they
I
had
love a
that
good
feud.
feud.
Yeah, they had that feud there. And so, but what I hear when you say that is like all the Link to the Past stands being like, yeah, well, you everything that you love about Ocarina of Time was created in Link to the Past, like that kind of thing.
Oh no, you know what? If I wanted to be really spicy towards the Ocarina of Time people, I would iterate on their debate just a little bit, just a smidge. I would say that Ocarina of Time owes everything in its existence to Super Mario 64.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
I would say that if you take the essence of what this game is and then stretch that over like Kirby style, like stretched it over and around the engine of Super Mario 64, then I guess that's what I think of as Ocarina of Time actually being.
Yep.
Because one of the things that I have such a hard time with as somebody who didn't own the 64 is the uniquely janky fucking physics of that console. Trying to play a 64 game ever on any console, and I'm gonna make one notable exception here, has proved ultimately to feel really futile to me. I don't know what it is. It's something about the physics at that time in 3D. Excuse me as I cough for a second.
Okay, I died.
Something
But
about the physics in that space, and something about the jank ass controller for the N64, where the least hot take I'll make all evening is that the N64 controller is bad.
Yep,
I tend not to understate things,
it
but
is
I
bad.
will just leave that one at it is bad, and I don't need to continue to further that debate. But but you know, that one exception was Mario 64 on the Nintendo DS. For some reason, that game, like, the physics actually feel better than the physics of the original Mario 64, and it plays really well on that hardware.
Well, you know what's
I
funny?
think it ran at a little bit of a higher frame rate too, which helped, and it ran, you know, didn't look quite as awful.
Yeah. You know what's really funny about how bad the controller is on the N64 is if you don't have a controller. By the way, hold on, check this out. This is just hilarious. You open this door here and you're like, what the fuck? Fucking troll. Anyway.
Yep. I hate when Zelda does that shit. They do that in so many games where you're like, oh man, I finally found something new, and they're like, no, you just found a nothing. Congratulations.
Yep. So the funny thing about the N64 controller is it's so jank and weird that I honestly think playing like the Virtual Console N64 is just not as good if you don't have an N64 controller, because you just need that controller for how janky it is, like, because like all the games were built with sort of that in mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no doubt.
So I need to get like an adapter for like an OG N64 controller or something.
Or I think stock will be coming back of the N64 online.
That we got to get that immediately, because that's going to go out of stock like immediately.
We'll stock hunt for those, because honestly I want to get an NES, SNES, and N64 controller for each of the online ones, just so I can fire up that when I want to play, right? So here's the funny thing. I go on and I harp earlier in this episode about how much I freaking hate, you know, what Nintendo is doing, or not so much hate as I vehemently disagree with some of their strategy. But then I go and, you know, I will occasionally just like, I want to play certain games on my Switch. You want to know why? Because I can rewind. They have actually added value to certain
It's pretty nice,
in the NES and SNES. With me being an old ass person who's afraid to try something new and spend a lot of time figuring out an old game that, you know, might not be as intuitive, let's say, as a game.
It's an accessibility option.
Yeah, it truly is. I mean, not just accessibility in the sense that my old ass is cranky and cantankerous, but it's really for folks who might not have the ability to operate that controller in a way. And I'll say this, Nintendo could go a long way towards supporting accessibility options like Microsoft's accessibility controller, for people who actually need that accessibility. But in the interim, to play those games, having that option for folks, say, who have like muscular neuro disorders, who might have like a shake or something, or like Parkinson's.
Yep.
Those features are essential to being able to play something like Metroid or Zelda or whatever, because those unforgiving ass platform sections, having the ability to grip your controller and have the rewind feature initiate.
Yep.
And be able to dial that back right to the moment before you got knocked off the platform or whatever. Fabulous. There needs to be more of that. They need to bring that to the N64 Online. And in fact, I'm one of the people who's out there basically paying for N64 Online and not using it, because I'll always protests of interest, right? Because Nintendo, is happy to collect my money, but that there's a department at Nintendo is analyzing the amount of time people are spending in the app, why they're not spending time in the app.
That's why they're releasing new games in them.
Time on.
Like Majora's Mask just got announced for the Virtual Console, which that's pretty sweet.
Also, did you see the special edition of Metroid?
OG Metroid or?
Super Metroid. It's one of the newest titles on it. They added you have all of the shit and you're walking into the final boss, and they've set it as an exact point where it's basically doing the final section of the game, and how fast you do it pans out on what ending you get. So it's really just a final boss rush version, where they give you the traditional reward of how much of Samus's skin you get to see essentially at the end, depending on how fast you just do that one segment with everything totally unlocked and finished and ready to go. To the point where I actually checked, which I thought was funny, the map itself, how it fills in and changes colors as you visit that square of map. Whoever did it in such a speed run that there's so many squares on the map that are not filled in, that are superfluous, from a speedrunner's perspective to physically pass through.
So I wanted to highlight this because this is the intro to the boss fight on this. I just think it's a very cool cinematic, Zelda, Link to the Past, kind of dipping its toes in cinematic presentation. Just like, oh, what's this? This is very ominous. And then
like building the mystery, like, ooh.
Yep. Because that's the thing about these games that I try to keep in mind is this game came out in 1991.
Yeah, I was literally a year old.
How did this feel to people when they first played this? Holy so epic.
Because that's a kind of magic, right? That one of the things I get all puristy about sometimes with the retro gaming thing.
Now we fight a turtle.
Nice. That if you're playing this for the first time, right, and you don't have pixel lines and you don't have pixel filters, and it's just a smear of 16-bit color, and you're playing it through just, you don't have that additional crunchy audio that we had where it's all coming through a mono speaker that's bass boosted. We don't have all these we have all these little contrivances and bits to the memory that you can add in after the fact, but it just doesn't come with raw emulation. So it's I get a little on my high horse against just well, you can emulate anything on an LCD connected to a Raspberry Pi, and I'm yes, you can, but are you losing something in that? And I guess I'm of the opinion that yes, you do. Not that that's to shame people who can only do that as their sole option.
Yeah, but I mean, it's kind of funny because I am I'm definitely pro emulation, but at the same time I realize I didn't have the experience of WoW until I played the Super NT, which was running on native hardware, because I was oh my god, this feels like a Super Nintendo, whereas emulation
it took you right back.
Whereas in emulation, for whatever reason, there's something, and I'm sure, I honestly, I think even somebody with a lot of programming knowledge could probably explain to me what that is, because it feels like there is something missing with emulation, and I don't know what it is. I don't know the actual definition of what it is.
Well, I mean, you can get it really dialed in with your emulation, right? Because what I'm projecting to my TV off of the Analog Pocket, for example, is just, a lot of trickery while preserving a certain read of it. Because, right, all these emulated cores are out there just trying to do the OG thing without breaking the law. So you can get this on a PC. You can get this on a PC screen. You can emulate right down to like the console, the lines in between the pixels on the Game Boy Color screen, so to speak. It's just a lot of effort. Like, right? Somebody has to go through and make these cores to have this experience. They have to make those screen filters. They have to build in the software that's going to, you know, work with multiple refresh rates across different monitors. And that's, you know, that's a lot of effort. To find that free all in one is a simple click and download online. Nintendo and other game companies, rightfully for their IP, fight very hard against these things being able to exist in such a convenient package. So a lot of times you have to DIY it. Get this, download those cores, plug in this screen filter, adjust these settings on your monitor from the hardware side to sync up with the refresh rate that this thing is putting out, and you can get to that, but it's not worth the effort, and no newbie out there who wants to play this game for the first time is ever going to frickin' do that.
So this is Zelda. The last sage that you get is Zelda. Because if you remember, she was kidnapped right before you go to the Dark World after you get the Master Sword.
Yes. She's like hiding out in like a not church sanctuary. Definitely not a church. That definitely doesn't have arrangements of pews like a Christian church. And is hiding out there thinking that's going to keep her safe from the entire fricking kingdom and an evil wizard looking for her. And it's more of just like a diversion so you can go collect the 3 MacGuffins.
So now they say go to the Tower of Ganon and we'll use our combined powers to break the barrier. So epic stuff's happening here. Also, I love that in every Zelda game. Do you understand? Do you need me to repeat this? If you
it always gives off Professor Oak vibes.
Yep.
Are you a boy or are you a girl?
Yeah. The owl in Ocarina of Time is notorious for just being like, do you need me to repeat this? Okay, so now we're gonna go to the tower, which is right next door conveniently. So these fucking lion guys, I gotta get out of their way.
Lionels. Look at the lions and tar people. I love them.
So check this out. This fucking glowy place. So you couldn't get in here before, but now that I have all the sage's power, they say we're going to break the barrier of Ganon's tower with our power.
Nice. So, hey, fun thing I just noticed. Lionels have the same, in this game, their original color scheme, there's a villager in Animal Crossing that is a lion called Lionel that has white hair, brownish skin, and wears a green jacket.
I wonder...
And very much looks like the color scheme.
I wonder if that's an homage to that, since it's Nintendo.
I mean, it's Nintendo.
Yeah.
So there's got to be something going on there. There's nothing like accidental in Nintendo's world.
So before we do this last dungeon, I was thinking it'd be okay if we took like a 5 to 10 minute break, since we're at the hour 46.
Yeah, I was gonna say I just need for myself 5 minutes to go attend to bodily needs and to breathe a little.
All right, well, let's we're gonna take a little break, everybody. Let's pause this here. So we'll take a little break and
enjoy the waiting music.
We'll be back in about 5 to 10. And we're back.
And we are back. So when we last left off, you were mid-dungeon. Here we are.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I was actually about to start the last dungeon.
Oh, about to start the last dungeon because the sages have successfully done their MacGuffin-like plot device.
Yep, and now you know this is Ganon's tower because guess who is holding the Triforce?
And guess who looks like a pig and literally has boars flanking the entrance.
Yep, it's Ganon. Yeah, so that's a funny thing too. I guess like the manual has a bunch of the story, but he like when he got trapped in here, he got trapped in like his monster form. Ganon.
Yeah.
Which is why he looks like he does. which is funny because like
it's interesting that like they don't have that as a factor. And like I mentioned the Four Swords adventure, like he like claims this the trident, because right, Ganon always uses a trident that it was a weapon. He claims this trident that like allows him to tap into his inner evil or some shit. I don't honestly remember what happens, and then suddenly he's Pig Ganon at the end of it, despite being Ganondorf. In fact, you never actually see him as Ganondorf. You only ever see him as Ganon. It's only like talked about off screen, him Ganondorf coming and taking the trident.
Yeah. Also,
Floor Masters.
Yep. So this dungeon is the dungeon. It has every freaking hazard you could think of. So
nice. So a good rundown on what you would expect to fight, find in various dungeons throughout the game, all meshed together, sort of that, Oh, the Pegasus boots to knock something off, just like with the bookshelf.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Everything.
So basically, let me guess, they run you through 80% of your items.
Pretty much. I mean, yeah. This is the dungeon, the dungeon of dungeons.
Well, does this game have optional items like a lot of the other Zeldas?
It does. So this is an optional item right here. Cane of Birana. What's that? Sorry.
So your cane is optional.
This one, this one. Cane of Birana. By. How would you pronounce that?
Birna.
Birna. Check this out. Just makes me invincible.
I just want to call it the like Cave of Brian. Like my dyslexic brain just reads that, and like the first thing I saw was Brian. And I was like, that's not it.
Yeah. All right. I am now a bunny, and I have to move around a lot because I don't want to get hit by the floor master like that.
Oh.
And we got all these moving floors as well, which I don't remember if this was ever a thing in the 3D Zeldas.
Like, but can you kill the floor master when it lands?
Yes.
Can you like hit it?
I can.
Nice.
I need to, and I think it just delays it for a little bit, but not. But he'll come back eventually.
So in the Oracle games, if you kill a floor master, they won't respawn until you like leave the room and come back, which is I feel very merciful.
Yeah, totally. Oh yeah, and then these fucking mummies who just have a ton of health. I almost got hit by that floor master. Oh yeah, but if I use fire on these guys, they like die instantly. It's great because they're mummies.
Or wait, I think floor masters are the ones that come out of the floors. The ones that drop from the ceilings are wall masters.
Yeah, they are wall masters. Yep, that's what they're called.
Could be called like ceiling masters or something to make it a little bit more clear, but
right? It's like they're not coming from a wall.
Well, is the ceiling just a glorified wall the same way the thumb is a glorified finger?
Oh man, now we're getting in the deep talk in this
yeah,
stream.
See, this is why we're doing it.
This is the real talk.
This is someday when they write the book about the next Confucius, it will contain quotes from our streamcast.
Yep. All right, here we go. Give me that heart piece. Boomerang classic gets your item. But can't do anything else in there.
I had this like almost kind of crazy, and it's not every day. I say something, especially the lines of I was inspired by something from a dream, because anybody who actually knows me thinks that
you hate dreams.
It's not that I hate dreams. It's just that I don't talk about them.
Yeah.
I mean, really all of the above. I don't care for the phenomenon of dreaming, and I also don't care to hear about other people's dreams. But that being said, I had sort of a dream that inspired a build. Because I've been sort of obsessed with getting an arcade cabinet for a while, and then I'm like, damn, now that I know somebody who knows how to solder, like, let's just make our own arcade cabinet.
It's always been a dream of mine.
Like a Game Boy Color as like a main board for it, and then just connect the proper giant resolution screen. The screen would be the most important part of it, because the rest of it you could build out. You could get like a big arcade stick controller and deconstruct that, put that, install that, and like, if you're good with woodworking and good with your hands and crafting, then making the arcade cabinet is like not necessarily the most difficult part there. It's more of just like sourcing a proper screen and getting all the power and voltage correct so that you can have the screen powered using a Game Boy Advance or a Game Boy whatever board.
Well, what I would do is, honestly, I mean, I guess like, so we have a couple options. Either A, you could have like some natively run one singular console, or B, you could make like a PC in it and then have it just run a bunch of games.
Nah, I want to avoid that one specifically because I like the idea of, and I keep coming back to Game Boy and maybe even Game Boy Color, the idea of grabbing one of my Game Boy Color carts and just slotting it in somewhere on an arcade machine, like even having like a port, right?
Yeah,
almost like,
okay, I see what you're saying.
Like
Yeah.
a sort of in like those Japanese custom like anime computer mainframes where people like, I take out this custom code disk and plug it in like it's the nuclear ignition key or something, right? Having like just plug in your cartridge, it's mounted right there in front of you beneath the screen. You have like a whole large button and joystick setup like an arcade cabinet would have.
Yeah.
And having an arcade cabinet experience as a little basically think of what we're doing with retro consoles, but the housing of it is an arcade cabinet instead of another plastic unibody.
Yep.
With a instead of making the screen being the same size, just getting a much bigger screen that's the same aspect ratio.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying. Like that, yeah, I've always kind of had dreams of like arcade cabinets. Like I would love to do that. Honestly, like that's a project that I want to do when I like buy my place and I have like a workshop, because I love the idea of woodwork as well.
So you want to hear my horrible temptation?
What's that?
Is that when I looked at this house, this room for the very first time, purchasing this shit, right? He had a freaking arcade cabinet down here. So I know what this den looks like with not only an arcade cabinet, but a sick drum kit.
Cool.
I was like, I was like, oh my god, I love your den. My den is gonna be cool someday too. And I really have that dream, right, of having that arcade cabinet down here where it's like, whether I buy one myself someday, because arcade cabinets are not as expensive as I thought. They're still really pricey, but it's like if I'm buying one to be like a forever piece of furniture that I'm going to take good care of, right? Like it's not like I'm going to be in the market for an arcade cabinet twice. It's sort of a you buy it once type thing.
I still want to build my own too. Like, oh man,
but
you know what
but it's like I have this list of like arcade cabinets, actually the easiest to acquire. But if it's like, if I had unlimited money, or if I had more and more money to like get a arcade style machine in my house,
yeah,
I would really want pinball, like a nice like bar pinball machine,
like a legit pinball machine. Like, yeah.
Oh, you know what I'd want? I'd want the Two Towers or Return of the King. I'd settle for Fellowship as well. The movie branded Bally's official pinball machine, because Bally's is actually, I don't know if you know this, but they are Vegas gaming company and casino, and they make gambling machines of fidelity and quality, including bar pinball machines and things like that. So getting like Bally's official pinball machines, that's sort of our generation of pinball machines, right? The ones that have the integrated like audio, visual, clips from the movie and whatnot. My kids are gonna look at this thing someday and be like, why would he want that when you could get something either way newer or way older? And it's like, you would have had to been there. It's like, adults who are obsessed with Kiss.
Yeah,
I don't get it, but I know that like it's really cool the people who were there for its heyday. But it's just one of those things that probably like there are limited new fans who are coming on for Kiss because it's like an acquired flavor of its time. And I feel like those arcade machines are going to be similar to that.
So
fuck, I think there is a Kiss pinball machine out there.
There definitely is. I'm pretty sure it's at actually Ground Control in Portland. I'm like, I would honestly take a bet on that. I think Ground Control has a Kiss pinball machine.
To finish that thought, there is one machine that I want more than that pinball machine, but it is mad expensive to the point of like, it's like the holy grail if I could afford it. And that is a skee ball machine, because skee ball is the most fun a human being can have. And I will die on that hill.
Interesting. I like skee ball, like IRL skee ball. That's pretty fun. That's like the push
what I'm talking
one.
About.
Like right?
Actually IRL skee ball, like having just a full skee ball machine in my home.
That'd be pretty sick.
That's the dream. Yeah.
So highlighting some puzzles here. This is an interesting room here. So you get teleported here. You have no way out. You're just like, what the fuck do I do? Okay, I can't go anywhere. Well, I guess I'll just light this. Boom, new mechanic. Hidden floors.
Oh, lovely.
And you don't even have to have the torches lit. If you know they're there, you can just go.
See, to me, that is like a hallmark of Shigeru Miyamoto. Is like at some point, invisible floors will be a thing.
Yeah, that is totally a
It
Shigeru
is level
Miyamoto
design
thing.
in any game you've ever played, or temporary floors that you have to run along a track that's appearing and disappearing as you go. Yeah. Or having to like memorize where the invisible floor is and then walking over it in that exact memorized pattern. Yeah. Zelda and Mario are both like owing so much of their level design to those tropes coming in.
Yeah, actually, I think in like every Shigeru Miyamoto game, you know what? That would be a bingo thing. Like, is there an invisible floor puzzle? Because like I know it's in Ocarina.
Shigeru Miyamoto bingo would be an awesome game to play.
That'd be
like
so great.
Just watch, you know, like a stream of somebody playing a game, and just whenever some blatant Miyamoto shit starts happening.
Yep. Oh, another fun thing though. So here is something they don't tell you, but if I do a spell ether, check this out. Shows me where they are. Isn't that neat?
Yeah. So as
I don't have the big key yet.
As we carry on towards the sort of the end of the segment, as I watch you finish out this awesome ass dungeon, very expertly done, I might add. My mind, you know, begins to wander to, you know, the games I'm going to be playing after this and whatnot, and just for the sake of making conversation, I played through the Jackie mission again. I did that part of Cyberpunk, the part that everybody has to go through to, you know, continue on.
Yeah.
Smoother for sure. I think I got through it in 15 minutes with fast pressing through the dialogue.
That's good.
Yeah. I'll say this though. You don't. It's now patched out that your grenades don't travel with you to the site. So, crafting characters, I'll say, are at an advantage for being able to craft grenades on the spot if you come with plenty of crafting material, because that travels with you everywhere. But yeah, I said anybody out there who is playing, thinking about playing Cyberpunk again, getting through those required early game spots. Now that you can skip the entirety of the brain dance sequences.
Oh my god, it's so that's.
Did you play through that yet?
Oh yeah. I'm right before the heist, and I completely skipped it. I was like, fuck.
I didn't mind that they still made you do the one where you actually have to go.
Yeah, that was fine because that's like.
But the tutorial one where you're forced to learn how to use it at the exact speed of Judy talking to you, Choom. I'm like, no, Judy, can we just not do this again? I want to like you, Judy. On my female characters, I even want to be with you, but.
Oh my god. You were very hard anti-Judy when that game came out, and I know why, because she's like totally gamer bait.
Yeah,
I mean, she is. Let's not lie to ourselves.
The prevalence of like gamer bait girls out there is a phenomenon that I, as a man in my 30s, just do not understand anymore, and that is okay, because not everything has to be for me.
Yep. Oh yeah, you have to fight some old bosses again. Yep, I remember this.
Lovely. Yeah, I enjoyed getting through that, but that's also the reason why I didn't get any sleep last night, because the job distribution from Regina is different now to that, where when you get to certain levels, which are really low, and complete all of the jobs that she has laid out for you, she feeds you more. Eventually, she will feed you all the jobs if you want before you have to do the Jackie mission. So you can complete all 22 missions. Before, like, because there's enough experience from those missions that I started the Jackie mission at level 18. After cleaning out Watson, all the police stuff and all whatever, which was higher than the level I started at in the original game, actually. And I started at a much higher level of street cred and with a massive amount more money. I heard they buffed street cred slightly and buffed money kind of significantly, and that's absolutely true.
Gotcha.
It doesn't seem like it at first, but by the time I finished out everything in Watson, I had over 50,000 eddies.
God damn.
Hey, another big key.
Yes. Now this was not. This actually what felt a little earned.
Yeah.
So,
I'm, by the way, watching the delayed version of your stream, unfortunately, just to save on some bandwidth. So if I'm a smidge behind the times, it's
that's all right.
It's
yeah.
we'll
Ooh, I'm gonna catch some of these guys. You caught a fairy. Yes. It's a little bit maniacal if you think about it, just catching fairies and keeping them in bottles. But you know, Zelda's always had it, I guess.
Yeah.
So what do you think is gonna be okay? So if you want to guess, what's? Oops, I did not mean to do that.
I imagine that since you're like swinging your sword, it's like the fairies you consume. It's just like you're slashing the fairies like in half and then just like licking the blood off the blade.
Okay, so what do you think's going to be in the big chest here? So I have every item, so it's not going to be an item. That's your hint. Or not? It's not going to be a usable item. I'll say that.
A single rupee seems like a very Zelda thing.
That would be pretty trolly, but it's not that.
Okay, that honestly, that would have been my first guess. So let's do it.
It's a new tunic, the red mail.
Oh, hence the one of my favorite tropes of all time. Like literally, totally am in love with the trope. Your reward is clothes.
Yep, and I mean technically armor, because now my armor's way better. All right, I think that was all of the bottom floors. Yeah, so now time to make my way up.
All right.
I think. Oh wait, I haven't gotten the map yet. I want to get that map. This is a big dungeon, and I could miss some things, so I definitely like this is I think the biggest dungeon in the game. I mean, it would make sense, I guess. How do I... Wait a minute. Do I have to kill this guy? Okay, now I'm actually kind of confused. Wait.
Wait, can you jump the gap to push the block from the other side?
I can't. Oh, you know what though? I think that is something where like I'd spawn from that side. But I got the big key, so I think I'm okay. I'm just gonna keep going. I'm just gonna go upstairs now. Because I think I needed the big key to go upstairs. So
yeah.
let's try this out.
Yeah, that one has vibes of you come through the other door and then push that block out. There are some hallmarks of Zelda dungeon design that are...
Some things never change. Oh, these fuckers. These guys. I gotta... There's a mod for this game that actually lets you, with the L and R buttons, which you wonder why they didn't have this before, but you can switch your items with the L and R buttons. I don't know why they didn't just implement that in the launch, because, like, there's nothing else that the L and R buttons do that I can think of.
Well, from what I've read, they saved so much money on the development of this game. Like, this game has actually half the colors of Super Nintendo's available colors.
It's pretty
just to save on development room to make for bigger maps and whatnot.
It is pretty funny that
that
like,
way they didn't have to duplicate as many resources when it came to graphical things by reducing the amount of color available.
What's really funny about the development of this game is like how it uses like so little of the Super Nintendo's like maximumness that like eventually gets used later, but like they still like, you know, made such an iconic game.
Yep. Well, right. I mean, I've been of the realization for a long time now that as long as a game looks as long as gameplay is incredibly well done, gameplay being, sorry, graphical capability being just passable is okay. You only need passable graphics if the gameplay is great. And I mean, I'll be one of those people who, right, like the new Pokemon game. Everybody's so upset about how it looks, and I'm just so amazed at what they managed to accomplish with that franchise.
Yeah.
You know, but I'm, you know, also one of those people that I'm not terribly hard to please. If you're smart enough to see where people actually put effort in, and that effort is a sensible thing and leads to a better overall product, who, you know, cares what it looks like? Everybody's like chasing the realism dragon where you can, you know, have fun in 8-bit.
Okay.
Realism's fun and all, but if realism, you know, doesn't come attached to a game that's also very good, then the realism, in my opinion, is kind of not really worth anything.
Yeah. Agreed.
You know what, realism? Go watch a bunch of Unreal Engine tech demos.
People freaking trying to remake games like literally Ocarina of Time on Unreal Engine. That's like literally a thing people are doing. Which, hey, you know, cool. It looks really cool.
Yeah, more power to them. At least they're going out there and making that game themselves instead of sitting around being like, Nintendo, make a game with better graphics.
Yeah, right. It's
I feel like poke a successful billion-dollar enterprise into doing things you want to do only works when they've actually failed to sell, like in the case of the Wii U.
Yeah.
Otherwise, trying to make Nintendo do anything that they're successfully getting millions of dollars to do, like, yes, it may not make you happy, but consider you're not the audience for Nintendo's games if their games don't make you happy, because they make enough people happy that they're a multi-billion-dollar industry. Not that I argue for capitalistic stagnation, but I argue that Nintendo has done really well in their space without having to, you know, by competing and innovating successfully and offering things that other people do not. So, you know, within that, you know, they pretty much have free and clear to do whatever they want.
I think of when you said they'll do it themselves, I just think of Thanos, like, fine, I'll do it myself.
Yeah. But yeah, I always appreciate the people who are willing to go in and say, like, right, I'm gonna make this whole ass whatever. I imagine that when they get close enough to success, they'll find the classic trap of Nintendo's going to shut them down.
Yep.
But,
it never fails.
Until that day, more power to them. And hey, maybe someday we'll get piracy to the point where we can defeat the power of the legal systems that constrain that creativity.
So, and the funny thing is, emulation is still legal. To emulate something is a legal thing to do in the United States. Now, software is not. But emulation of a console is a legal thing. That is a
creation of a new game using Nintendo's IP. We're about to find out. The whole Disney thing.
Oh, you mean with Winnie the Pooh?
Right. Because someday, right? What if the ability to
Mario becomes
hold IP for Nintendo in the United States becomes null and void? So Mr. US, you know, the Zelda's IP becomes null and void someday. I legally use the free version of Unreal Engine or get the proper license for Unreal Engine, and I make Unreal Engine The Legend of Zelda. Who to stop you if not but a judge?
And you know, actually, so here's an interesting thing. So yeah, so copyrights, like, so Winnie the Pooh is a really interesting example. Copyright, or the patent, or was it a patent or copyright? I can't remember, but it was it's in the US, I assume. Copyright. Mario is a Japanese product.
Now, and it's by multilateral agreements via international trade talks, all countries on Earth pretty much have some understanding of how we recognize each other's laws, all the way down to shit like IP law, copyright law, trademark law, distribution law, things like that, right? Like, in the United States, because of how Russia handled Tetris during a time where we didn't have good international relations, literally anybody could make a Tetris clone, and there's no legal mechanism by which the guy in Russia had to stop that whatsoever.
Yeah.
Because their laws just weren't valid here. And I mean, the USSR screwed him out of the royalties on that anyway. So even if the USSR wanted to say, this is Mother Russia's game and you will pay Mother Russia to play this, you got to have a United States that's willing to say, all right, a US judge will back up Russia's claim to these American-made Tetris clones. Yeah, like, hell no, not in any universe. So really, that will be put to the test someday. And maybe we'll figure out the answer before it even comes to Nintendo games or whatnot, because right, Disney's going to be fighting very, very hard, specifically on the Winnie the Pooh thing, to decide what this landscape looks like. And hey, maybe video games might get decided that they're not an applicable form of art, and maybe because they are imitating something that is copyrighted in code, that it could be like fall under the code sides of copyright and what is copyable there. There's all sorts of myriad that we won't know until people start to try and form those legal arguments to argue it in front of a judge to stop, you know, one thing or another from happening, or to award damages for one party or another that feels they're aggrieved. And that's not even to say what's, you know, because again, I don't know Japan's copyright law. Maybe they don't have expiring copyright or a notion of that. So
yeah, that's I wonder. And like, and I think what you're alluding to too is like the precedent that will be eventually created with this Winnie the Pooh thing with Disney.
Yes, so it impacts everything that involves fictitious characters. Truly.
Just like
the idea that you can go along and take somebody's pre-created fictitious character and the law says they no longer have the exclusive right to profit off of that thing, and you can start making your own take on that or whatever, you know, it's all fine and dandy when you say, oh yeah, there's a lot of cool creative works that could come out there, but you know, there are whole universes of published material that people make a lot of money off of that depend on having a sort of like I guess artistic integrity of this is how Link does things, and Link only does the things that Nintendo approves of, otherwise it's not Link's thing. Like, right, look at the existence of the Wand of Gamleon, which technically is a story that will never exist anywhere because
and Nintendo I think sanctioned it, didn't they? Or did they? I think
they gave they let somebody else
they gave
beloved property, and they gave the rights to them in such a way that they don't have the distribution rights really to that. All they have the ability to do was shut that down from being distributed any further. But it's not like Nintendo can take that, because I think it's Philips that owns the rights. The console was Philips CDI. So Philips, the electronics brand, owns 2 Zelda stories that they're likely not allowed to distribute at all. But maybe in Japan they have different, right? That would be my US take on it, but maybe in Japan they have different, you know, different laws regarding how that all worked. Maybe, you know, I have the totally wrong read here because I just have the wrong legal understanding of how Japanese law works regarding these things, which now, you know, that's a deep dive I can get into sometime. Thank goodness, you know. So yeah.
Oh my god, you see all the like what actually is kind of cool about this dungeon is it's like a bunch of just dungeon rooms. Like every room is like, okay, here's a new challenge, like it's pretty cool in that regard.
Lots of linked together concepts from previous dungeons, making every room like its own, like like all the puzzles here seem very multi-step versus just find the thing or, you know, get the key.
Like that one, and then I have to go make it.
There's one dungeon that in particularly is very vexing from Oracle of Ages. It's called Jabu Jabu's Belly.
Hey, that's Jabu Jabu's also in Ocarina as well. I can't believe you've never played Ocarina. That's just, like, blows my mind.
I mean, I have played, but I mean, I just sort of like get to the other edge of the Hyrule field and the owl starts talking again, and I'm like, fucking owl, stop.
I mean, I don't care. I don't blame you. The owl's fucking annoying.
And then like suddenly I'm playing something else that's more fun.
The owl's pretty annoying. Not gonna. Oh shit! I forgot about this.
Now what I do, like, I'm gonna say this: my only interest in playing Ocarina at this point, given that like it's sort of like a Metroid game, right? Once you've played it, if you're not specifically attached to playing each iteration on the entry, you can just sort of assume the same thing happens. You know, Zelda, trapped, puzzles, gameplay, whatever. Because like going back to N64, it's like I'm always going to be comparing that against even like against the Wind Waker, which to me is just so much more enjoyable to play. Now, that being said, I do really want to see Ocarina of Time through all the way, because I really, really, really have always wanted to play Majora's Mask, and playing Majora's Mask, which is a direct sequel without having played that first, always felt like
even though it doesn't,
I was making God cry.
Well, and I will say, wait, they don't have Ocarina on the Nintendo Virtual Console for Switch, do they?
That was the first game that came out, and because some of the filters were broken, people raged
That's
about it.
right. People hated it. I hated on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Guess what came out?
Did they fix
today,
it?
or this week?
Did they do a fix?
Oh, they've done some fixes. It's not perfect according to the emulation community, but I'll check in on that more for next time. But did you hear about what's happening on Elden Ring's launch next week or this week?
No, what happened?
Majora's Mask drops on Virtual Console.
Oh, yeah, I mentioned that.
Ring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now you have a reason.
I'm thinking that, like, yes, but you're honestly gonna have to help get me into Ocarina. You might have to play through past where I was able to get, because oh my god,
I could do that.
I have no desire to pick it up and try and play that game. And I want to get an N64 controller for it. Like, maybe I'm using that as an excuse to like wait it out.
Oh yeah,
bit.
yeah, that would be a way more enjoyable thing to use to play with an N64 controller.
Like actually play it, you know, more or less as God intended. Or
yeah.
a hot take, I might just actually go and pick up an N64 and go get that game.
That's something I'm eventually going to do. You know what I'm doing. I'm getting all these consoles to refurb and mod them, so I will eventually do that.
My personal goal, and I have a feeling that yours is going to be the same eventually, maybe, is that I aim to own a way to play every Nintendo game ever published. Eventually,
yeah, I would
and
like to do that.
I aim to acquire the Virtual Boy.
Now that's probably beyond what I'm gonna do. I'm not gonna lie.
Because my next purchase, my next new Nintendo console is going to be a Wii U before they get any more expensive.
Fuck! Oh, I hate that.
Because they're
so
still
much.
sub $300, and that's like a Christmas miracle.
Yeah, but again, dude, like eBay, I've been getting these junkers like everywhere, man. It's eBay's kind of
the Wii U console exterior mod. It's not quite a retro console yet, so there's not much support beyond like the official reshelling and whatnot, so I kind of just want to like keep it, you know, I kind of want to find a good one that still exists in its like launch condition, because I have a feeling that like it's going to be a few years before the 3DS and the Wii U gets the same love that even, you know, the DS Lite has been getting for several years.
Yeah.
Because they just existed for so long, and in that space, I would say post the transition into current/modern era, where there's not as much interest of people in, say, reshelling a PS3 as there is, or an Xbox 360, maybe more on an Xbox 360, because that was very moddable. But not as much interest in that generation, sort of the start of the current/next gen mania, as there is for, say, even Nintendo consoles at the same.
You want to hear
push.
something?
So maybe.
Oh, sorry. You finished your thought.
Oh no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, speaking of like reshelling, like now maybe your Google Foo will be better than mine, but I, for the life of me, like, so okay, I can't find reshells of GameCube, and here's the thing. There used to be a company who did translucent reshells of like PS2s and other things called Ghost Case or Ghost something, Ghost Shell. They're no longer around. And so a lot of old consoles you'll see that are like these old awesome translucent consoles were made by that company, and now they don't make them anymore. So now I'm just like, well, now what the fuck do I do?
I just found a metallic gold one. They don't have translucence, mind you, but I found a company on Etsy just now that is doing every color combination under the sun, including like really high quality metallic looking ones.
See, this is why your Google Foo is needed.
My eyes water.
You'll have to send me that link.
They have one that's black with the gold buttons and the gold front IO faceplate.
See, I don't understand how your Google Foo is Like, I don't.
I've always, since I was a boy, if there's something I want to acquire, I will stop at nothing until I not only acquire the thing, but acquire the knowledge to be able to get that thing again. Like, I don't believe in one-offs, like buying things that exist from a single seller once. Like, I want to find like the vein. It's like a prospector mentality of it's
Courtney
like
says
find
true.
the seam and share the wealth with the world. And it's like the search and I think what's helped is that I've done work in search engine optimization for my day
Yeah.
job.
So you understand, like,
When I was working for the knowledge base portion in my company, learning SEO from them, I was like, these things seem like really basic knowledge. They're like, wow, then you might be good at SEO. And I was like, that makes sense. I've always been the best Googler I've known. Which sounds like a really like stupid, like egotistical thing to say. But as you mentioned, I do have an uncanny knack for finding pretty much anything on the internet.
Courtney, which I'm Courtney maybe, says true. I'm guessing that's a Courtney that we know.
Yes, I think that is a Courtney that we know.
All right, so
shout out.
So we are here now at the dungeon boss.
The boss finally.
Yep, it's a long ass dungeon, dude. And
wait,
then
so how long was this hallway?
It wasn't as long as the other one, unfortunately.
Eek.
It's great that you
kept it really long.
All right, so now we're gonna fight Angrim, quote unquote, this guy who's totally not Ganon. So
this guy who all along, the not Ganon guy who has been trying to take over the same place that Ganon keeps trying to take over, reveals himself to be Ganon, you're saying? Dear God.
My God.
It's like he was lying to us all along. How could he do such a thing? He's no man of integrity.
Integrity. So classic, bouncing the thing, the little laser beam. Which, when I saw this in Ocarina as like a trope, because it's in like every Zelda. Oh, check this out.
I just found a wood veneer kit for the GameCube.
I actually saw that on Etsy. I did see that. It looks really dope.
Nice. Alex. Oh.
So check it out.
His little evil bat.
Yep, his bat came out, and now check out what happens.
Yeah. Now, see, this scene up here, like on top of the temple and all of that, this is like when you would see video game magazines talking about old great video games. They would show clips from this game specifically around it as like an example shot, evocative to everybody who played it of like, oh yeah, that's a moment late game.
So here's an interesting thing though. I can't fight Ganon right now because I don't have a specific item. So Ganon boss fight is literally in that hole. That is where I fight Ganon. But I need something. Ever since I got to the Dark World, there's this little explosion here, or a little spot here, and I can't blow it up with a bomb. So I'm like, okay, what do I do? Well, I'll show you. Got to go all the way. Now, I honestly don't know how. I'm going to be real. I don't know how. There's got to be some in-game prompts to teach you this. But I mean, there comes a point when you've played a game so much that you don't even know if the game is trying to teach you or not. You know what I mean? Because you just know it. So I just know where to go.
I think this starship knows which way to go.
What?
Space Oddity.
So check this out. So now I got this bomb guy. So originally he was only selling this, but now he sells a big bomb. So I talked to him. I also have a new super bomb in stock for only 100 rubies. Rupees, please buy it. By the way, when I was a kid, I always called them rubies instead of rupees.
I remembered when you mentioned that to me, and I was like, yeah, but India.
I tried telling 7-year-old me about India. I was like, what?
Well, if 7-year-old you knew how much 17-year-old and 27-year-old you felt about India.
Yeah, right. So
I think
now,
before we turn 37, we should just go to India.
just to complete the circle.
Yeah, as well.
Just don't eat the street food. I know. I have a friend who.
One of those places I've always wanted to go.
Oh yeah, you know, my friend that I talk about, he, you know, he could give a lot of tips on going to India. All right, here we go. So now it's on a little countdown. All right, so now, and check out this ferry. Wondrous, mysterious pond. So now we get to throw items in here. I'm gonna throw my bow and arrow.
Of course, classic. Like,
yep.
just yeet your item into the magical fairy pond, and maybe she will return you it.
You got Big Lady instead of the little wafy ones.
Yeah, love her.
What an honest person. I like you. I will give you something
I
important.
love that the fairy queens in Zelda are always like full-bodied and full-figured women. Like, shout out to Shigeru Miyamoto for telling us like who the real boss bitches of the world are.
Silver arrows.
Like, hitting its peak obviously in Breath of the Wild, where those fairies are like the most ludicrously like bodacious women you've ever seen, and they are all doing very questionable things to Link in order to give him his power-ups. So
the light arrows are these silver arrows in this, because you need those to beat Ganon. It's interesting that they call them silver arrows in this. I don't know if that was a translation error or not.
Yeah.
Oops, I didn't mean to do that. God damn it. So I have to get another upgrade as well.
Nice.
But since she already upgraded, she's like, don't do it again. All right, here we go. Throw an item. Here we go. Okay, so I'm gonna throw. The only other thing I can throw, I think, is my sword.
I like that they make you do this instead of her just being like, let me upgrade all of your items that I can possibly upgrade for you.
So what was... Oh, I love this. You can feel its power throbbing in your hand.
My throbbing blade. God.
So what I liked about this is like it encouraged experimentation, because like as a kid I would always like go here and be like, oh, what can I throw in? Like what? Like maybe the hook shot? And she says, nope, give it back to you. I think the only upgrades you get from her are the sword and the arrows, I think. But I'm not 100% certain. But anyway.
I'll give this back to you. Don't drop it again.
Yeah, don't drop it again. Like, all right, jeez. All right, here we go. You ready for Ganon?
Mm-hmm.
All right. I don't know if I might actually die, but we'll see.
You folks at home, this will be like the umpteenth time I've seen Ganon killed, but the first time I've ever seen him killed in this game.
Yes, sir.
Personally killed him myself a few times.
So yeah, a classic Ganon. I never imagined a boy like you could give me so much trouble. It's unbelievable that you defeated my alter ego, Aghanim, the Dark Wizard, twice. I will never give you the Triforce. I will destroy you and make my wish to conquer both light and dark worlds come true without delay. Alright, cool, dude. He gets his own special boss music. As he should.
Of course. Yeah, Nash. I love that one of his attacks, in all, like that same attack, the throw the trident around and have that moving around the battlefield, is classic.
Oh, shit.
But it does give him the sort of like appearance of like he's in a color guard with like all of his twirling.
Yeah. It is pretty funny. Okay, I think I don't know how many fairies I have, but that was one down. How many fairies do I have left? One more. Okay, let's not suck. Ah, shit. Oh, so now he's gonna start reducing the area. So I can fall down now. I don't want to do that.
Yeah, that sounds...
You are doing well, lad, but can you break through this secret technique of darkness on guard?
Secret technique of darkness. Oh, that's how he took over the whole kingdom. Amazing.
Yep, his secret technique of darkness. All I have to do is light the torch. Ah, shit. I have to light both of them, I just remembered. Okay, and then I think so then I hit him, and then he's frozen, and then I go... Oh, fuck. Oh, shit, okay. Okay. Let's not get hit.
Okay.
Come on, dude. Oh my god. There we go. Oh my god. There we go. I got him. Okay. It's so janky. Alright, and then... I don't know how many times I need to do this. That's another thing. Link to the Past doesn't have like the 3 hit rule in bosses, which I love because I hate that rule so much. I hate it. Because it's like, it just ruins like any, you know, like suspense of a boss fight, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, I just have to hit it 3 times, alright.
1, 2, 3. It's like the Tootsie Pop Owl.
Shit. I have 1 more health. Fuck me. I have to be really smart about this. I did it!
Nice.
And that was the last sequence of Link to the Past.
And that's how...
Check this out. We get the Triforce. This is the one time that you see the Triforce in the flesh in a Zelda game.
Well, the one time Link gets to touch it, you actually see the Triforce in the flesh at the beginning of the Oracle games in the intro.
Okay.
The Triforce literally comes together and it's like, yo, you're needed in another land, and it yeets you all the way to Labrina or
yeah, the
Holodron.
Triforce talks also.
Yep.
But yeah, you actually touch the Triforce in this game, which I don't know if there's any other game, because you actually make your wish. Link makes his wish of like restoring Hyrule.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's ever done again in a Zelda game. The Triforce will grant the wishes in the heart or the mind of the person who touches it. And it's kind of funny because it feels like the way that the Triforce works is less of I wish, and it's more it like takes what is in your heart and makes it true or something like that. So Link being a hero, an altruistic hero, you know, and
that's why Ganondorf never quite gets his wish.
Yep.
Or Ganon.
If a person with a good heart touches it, it will make his good wishes come true. If an evil-hearted person touches it, it will grant his evil wishes, which is what Ganon did in some timelines.
Yeah.
The stronger the wish, the more powerful. Actually, the more powerful the Triforce's expression of that wish. So that's another thing. If you have a stronger wish, it will be powerful. And I'm guessing they mean stronger as in also will as well, like your will. This is the Triforce music also. I don't know if you can hear it, but Ganon's wish was to conquer the world. That wish changed the Golden Land to the Dark. Oh yeah, that's right. The Golden Land, the Dark World, it used to be the Golden Land where the Triforce was.
Yep, and then he went there and he wound up corrupting everything by pretty much being there and being himself.
Being a dick.
Yeah.
So Ganon was building up his power here so he could conquer the light world and make his wish come completely true. But now you have totally destroyed Ganon. Until the next game. His dark world will vanish. Oh, and there is a sequel to this game, A Link Between Worlds, which I have never played. Triforce is waiting for a new owner. Its golden power is in your hands.
That's one of the few 3DS games you can still buy for actually just $40, because 3DS games, like the collecting market, has already gotten on them because they ended the runs very late.
Yeah.
very finally in a time where everybody was still actually really playing 3DS because not everybody had gotten a Switch yet.
And there it is.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
So, now we get to watch this credit sequence and have our conclusion.
Yeah, so that is A Link to the Past. That's the first time I've ever seen the end of that game. Very cool. We're getting a traditional Nintendo credit sequence.
Yeah, where they tell you the name of everything.
Yeah, the name of all the people who were there, all the, trying to name some locations and whatnot, as they do in Super Mario World. But yeah, I can definitely say that now that I've watched you play this game, I'm, want to dive back in and actually play through it and figure out how to play it myself, just as I did with Super Metroid. But,
yeah, you saw me do you saw me do 2 dungeons in the Dark World, or no, sorry, now you see me do 4 dungeons in the Dark World out of the 8. So but you've seen me do everything else. So I feel like you have enough knowledge to tackle this game on your own.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So that'll be a great time going through and giving this a shot myself. I look forward to continuing on the topic of Legend of Zelda with playing another game in the series. I don't think we necessarily have to play the next chronological one, but I would like to continue this.
Yeah, we could. Our next one could be. It could be either one of the Oracle games, A Link's Awakening. It could be Ocarina of Time.
Yeah. We'll hold off on doing one of the Game Boy ones until I get the operator, so I can just run that straight off the cartridge here, because that'll be fun. Because I plan on picking those games up to in physical form, so we'll be able to do that straight off, and we'll get to also be able to do a little demo/review of the epilogue at the same time.
Oh yeah. Well, I guess that's a question, is if you wanted to, like, on your cart play up to that point, or on an emulator we would just get a save.
Oh yeah. Well, here's the brilliant thing about it. You can flash 2 official carts using the epilogue, so I can find a save and just flash it to the right spot.
I don't know. I wonder how that would work.
I have seen a demo of how it works a little bit. Basically, people with it, it's sort of a similar technology to how the Analog Pocket, right? It freezes it and sort of like puts it into sleep. It's basically like a suspend state. You can flash from those suspend states basically directly onto a cart, and that's essentially what you're doing when you resume a save state. Say like I take your copy of Mold Mania and I resume my save state on it. Well, that game cart save data wasn't there, but it's just rolling with what I'm playing, and if I save it, it will overwrite what's on the cart save state wise.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
The Force Thief.
Force Thief is a dick.
Yeah, he is. And the Master Sword sleeps again forever. That's a fucking lie.
Yeah, that is a bunch of goddamn bullshit.
The biggest goddamn lie this game ever tells you.
Yeah, I'm trying to recall when's the next time in this timeline. Like, what happens after Link to the Past?
Is this the timeline where Wind Waker happens? I can't remember. I mean, we could just like... Fuck.
No, Wind Waker... Wind Waker is the timeline where the child, like, never... when the child never returned. Or, sorry, when the hero didn't return to the one timeline. So Ganon came back in that timeline, and there's nobody around to stop him. And then eventually everything got flooded by the gods to sort of wash that away. So I think this is the timeline where the hero returned, but Hyrule falls into a decline after the hero passes and leads to the present day. I don't know, though. I could have the total wrong on that. I'm going to be honest. The people who have that memorized are like the Zelda fans that are like really into it.
Oh,
like,
and
really into it.
And our buddy Nintendo like made it official, which really always amazes me.
Well, they printed a book, and so they made it official, but right then they did Breath of the Wild to basically make it unofficial all over again. And they're like,
Yeah,
hey, guess what? We have references to all the timelines existing simultaneously in this one. And people are like, well, I guess if you just said it, it's sort of like what I call the the cyberpunk solution, the solution to the
yeah,
cyberpunk genre. Like, right, Blade Runner, we blew past the time in Blade Runner IRL. And in Cyberpunk 2020, we blew past that. The real world wound up being really, really different. So what do you do for these franchises now? You just set them so far past that you can basically, like, if you squint, any timelines could have led to that.
yeah. So I think actually Link Awakening I think it's the same hero from Link to the Past, but I could be wrong there. And then yeah, you have these.
Wait, so Link's Awakening is
I think, but again,
Link growing up?
no, Link to the Past. I don't think he's like a child. He's like a teenager or something. I don't really know his age actually. So anyway, you got the character, you got the Link from Link to the Past. Now again, don't quote me on this because I don't know if it's true or not. If this is the same Link in Link's Awakening, but I think it is.
Yeah. So the Link to the Past Link is the same Link in Link's Awakening and Oracle of Ages and Link Between the Worlds, and I'm not sure about Triforce Heroes, but yeah. So at the end of, I know the games came out later, but at the end of Oracle of Ages and Seasons, regardless of which order you do them in, Link sets out to sea to go back to Hyrule, and that's when he's caught up in the events of Link's Awakening, because he encounters the dreaming windfish at sea and gets sucked into its dream.
Okay,
Like,
and then you have a Link Between
much more cuddly
Worlds
version of Sin.
where he eventually gets back to the mainland and does his thing there.
Yes.
This Link does a lot of shit.
I'm not certain if Link Between Worlds actually happens.
Is it
like,
the same Link?
directly
It might
after
not be the
Link
same
Awake-
Link. Yeah.
No, it is, but I'm not sure if it comes right after Link's Awakening or if it comes after Link to the Past.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. But then we got Triforce
Yeah,
Heroes.
I'm not sure as to the nuances of that. Someday I'm gonna play through a Link Between Worlds once I finish a Link to the Past. So
Yeah.
now we've kind of like gotten through the critical block on
Yeah.
what was keeping me from playing like 2 games.
So then so Wind Waker didn't happen on this. The end of this timeline is the Adventure of Link. That is the end of the Hero Dies timeline.
Yeah, it's all a bunch of bullshit.
So that's why we know that it was a lie, because they got the goddamn Master Sword. So
Yeah. But again, they made this game thinking they were just going to make one-off games going forward where it was set in a different universe each
So
time. And then when they really doubled down on the 2 separate timelines thing, only with the existence of Twilight Princess. That's when they were like, no, this is canon. Like, there was 2 timelines created, and this one is this. Suddenly, like, the headache became official, and now I think with Breath of the Wild they've attempted to make it unofficial again. Like, this is the one thing I actually see Nintendo waffles on. Like, I think Shigeru Miyamoto wants it one way, the company wants it another way, and the nation of Japan wants it another way, and then the rest of the human race, aka the internet hive mind, thinks it should be like a 4th way.
And you know what's funny?
In reality, I think it's better taken if you use like the Marvel multiverse theory of like every single Zelda, even if some of them directly relate to one another, are still in different multiverses. Pokemon does that to not have to deal with, oh, does Ash exist in the same? Nope, they're all different universes. Every single game is a different universe.
And you know what's funny is on the official Zelda website, they do not have Breath of the Wild in the timeline, because it does. It is literally the merge of everything.
It eliminates that entire timeline's existence and need for, because the only thing that's certain, right, that they have codified into canon at this point, that they are very like have a big heart on for, is that all games exist in some measure of Hyrule's universe, but they all start canonically, historically, with Skyward Sword.
Yep, Skyward Sword.
And all of that bullshit
Minish Cap, 4 Swords.
to be in motion by the time Breath of the Wild exists.
It's Skyward Sword, Minish Cap, Four Swords, Ocarina of Time, and then the timeline split happens.
Yeah. I prefer not even to think about any of those besides just Skyward Sword is the beginning and Breath of the Wild is like after everything else.
Well, I always think of Breath of the Wild as like so far in the future that it's that like thousands of years in the future.
Minish Cap being put, just as a sidebar, Minish Cap being put so early creates problems with Vati's existence, because that's Vati's origin story, and other games claim that Vati basically originated. Yeah, it's complicated. It's one of those things where this timeline, even if it works, is loose because there's individual details in each game that kind of unwinds its position in the timeline a little bit.
Yeah. But anyway. All right,
yeah.
So
digress hardcore is what that was. We digress.
So any concluding thoughts on Zelda or our streamcast, anything that we've talked about today?
No, except that I'm grateful just to be able to sit and hash out some retro games with you and be able to share this with the world, our audience. No matter how big nor small nor here at all, we are always grateful for anyone who is willing to tune in and listen to us jaw on about what is important in the video game world as we see it.
Absolutely, I am agree. Oh yeah, we got so any new followers, which I think we got Pug King followed us. I was not able to shout that out just because my stream stuff is messed up. I'm still figuring that out. But thank you, Pug King, for following us. We got
thank you.
Yeah, so we got 8 followers now. You know, hey, we had a pretty solid viewer base. I think we did pretty good for our first go.
Woohoo! Yeah, I mean, I'm a total noob to this, so I am so happy to admit that the fact that we have anyone watching at all is just warms my little heart.
Yeah, and I think I mentioned this before. If one person can find enjoyment out of this, then it makes it all worth it.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. But yeah, honestly, I had a good time talking to you, Mars, about things this evening. I'm grateful for those of you at home watching. It's been lovely talking shop with you all, and I hope I can see you all again back here next time in 2 weeks.
Yeah, wait, so I guess we'll talk later because I didn't know we're not doing next week, but.
Oh yeah, I figure we'll do every other to start, just so I can take some time to prepare some more material for the next show.
Sounds good.
And hey, if we drop in for a surprise watch next week, then we'll give you all a shout out beforehand, just to let you know.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, come to the Discord. You know, hang out at Starship Pacific Discord. We'll be there. We'll be chilling.
Yeah, Zelda Retrospective 2 will resume at some point.
All right. Well, again, everybody, thank you so much for being here. JB, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks.
And we will see you all next time we broadcast, which is planned to be 2 weeks from now.
Yep. Pirate broadcast. Never know when we go live, but we'll let you know.
Indeed. Alrighty. Here it is, Renegade Retro Games.